My sister sabotaged me and turned my family against me years ago. Now they want to talk after leaving me homeless. I was 21 when my fiancé asked me to marry him. He was the absolute light of my life. We had known each other since preschool, and our families are very close. He would come and have dinner with us on a daily basis, and vice versa. He doesn't have any siblings, but I have 2 older sisters, which is very important, as he was also very close with them, and we grew up together. When we started dating, I don't think our parents stopped celebrating for weeks. He helped me deal with a lot of my anxiety, and even when I gained a little weight and my mother berated me, saying he was going to leave me, he told her off and said he loved me for who I was, not for what I looked like. We were only engaged for 6 months before the incident. My middle oldest sister, let's call her Nikki, was a very cold person. She never showed any affection. She only ever opened up to my fiancé, as she saw him as a brother, and he also helped her through a lot of her dark times, such as battling substance addictions and breaking the law. She and I never saw eye to eye, but I loved her dearly because she was my sister. I just didn't like her as a person. One day, she told me she wanted to take me clubbing, as we had never been together before and she felt bad that she was so distant from me. I agreed, and that night we went out. Clubbing wasn't really my style, but once I had a few drinks, I loosened up a little and began having fun. The night was going smoothly until Nikki spotted a guy across the room whom she claimed she wanted to climb like a tree. She walked over to him, and within a few minutes, she was back and she had a sour expression on her face. I asked her what was up, but she never said anything. I kept pressing because I didn't want our night to be ruined, and she told me the guy didn't want her number, but wanted mine instead. I told her he was a loser, and there were plenty of guys who would want to be with a girl like her, but she didn't budge. She told me she needed to use the restroom, and then we would leave. I waited for over an hour, and during this time, I was sipping on a lot of different drinks, and I started feeling really dizzy and lightheaded. I figured I'd just cab it home as I was certain Nikki had left. On the way out, though, I bumped into a friend of Nikki's whom she had briefly dated. He asked me if I needed a hand to my car, and I explained I was getting a cab. He said he was getting ready to leave, and we could share one. I told him okay, and we walked out of the club together and into the first cab we saw. I tried to find my phone in my purse, but I felt myself getting dizzier and dizzier. I don't remember what happened next, but I woke up the next morning on a hard sofa, my head pounding. When I came to, I realized I was at the friend's house, and my phone was at 0%. When he noticed I was awake, he offered some tablets and water and explained that I had passed out in the cab, and he didn't remember my parents' address, so he just picked me up and took me back here, where he laid me on the sofa. I told him I needed to go home as my fiancé would be worried, so he called a cab, and I left. When I arrived at my parents' house, my mother, father, Nikki, my fiancé, and his parents were all standing in the living room. I thought they were worried about me, but the instant I opened my mouth, my fiancé asked how could I do this to him. I tried to explain that my phone was at 0%, but he then went on screaming about how could I cheat on him. I was baffled. Why would he think that? I tried to explain the night's events, but I kept getting cut off. Nikki then chimed in and said I was a lying S-word, and how could I be so heartless to a man who has been there for me through thick and thin. She went on to say I kept flirting with random guys all night, and then when she went to the bathroom, she saw me leave with her friend. I told her what had happened, and she showed me photos on her phone where, as we were leaving, his hand was on my back, ushering me outside. Yes, the photo did look horrible, and I was so out of it I didn't even realize his hand was on my back. My fiancé was so angry, he kept shouting, and our moms were both crying. I then asked Nikki to call her friend, and he would confirm that nothing happened, but when she called him, he told a completely different story. He said I begged him to take me back to his place, and when he did, we slept together multiple times. I started crying and yelling at Nikki because I knew she had organized this to make me look bad. I begged my fiancé to believe me, but he just shook his head and left. When everyone had cleared out, my mother slapped me across the face and told me to get out. I left and went to a friend's house where I stayed for a few nights. During those nights, I called my fiancé, crying and pleading with him to believe me that nothing happened, but he never returned any of my calls or texts. My mom texted me and told me she was kicking me out. She didn't even give me time to get my things as she threw everything away. None of my family would take me in, as they chose my fiancé and mother's side. I found myself homeless and single in less than a day and a half. My entire world had been taken away because of Nikki's lies. For weeks, I tried everything to get my fiancé and family back. The breaking point for me, though, was when Christmas time had come, and I went over to my mother's house to try and reconcile. I was sleeping from couch to couch during this time. When I got to my parents' house, I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I later found out that my family was in another state celebrating Christmas, and they had posted pictures online. Everyone was there, my sisters, parents, grandparents, and even my fiancé and his family. When I saw the photos myself, I couldn't stop crying as they all looked so happy. I cried for days and days before deciding to block them all. I even returned my engagement ring. My friend knew someone a couple of hours away who was looking for some help in his restaurant, and he even had living arrangements above where he worked, so I could get rent at a cheap price and work at the same time. I wanted to start over with my life as it hurt me that no one took my side, and they all left me to fend for myself. I was able to move pretty quickly and was doing well. The apartment was tiny, and I had to work 10+ hours almost every day, but I was able to save a lot of money. I'm not living in the apartment anymore. I was able to rent a much nicer condo, but I am still working at the restaurant as an assistant manager. Now, it has been roughly 2 years since I left and have not spoken to any of my family. I had no idea what was going on with them until I got a knock on my door, and it was my ex-fiancé. I was shocked, to say the least, and I tried to slam the door in his face, but he stopped it and asked that I let him explain. He said that Nikki had gotten married, and she had confessed that she lied about the situation because she had found someone she loved so much and realized what a horrible thing she had done. I asked him how he found me, and he said my friend told him. My entire family had been trying to get in touch with me and wanted to see me. I told him I needed time to see if I even wanted to have them in my life. He left, and I have been a mess since. I don't know what to do. I know I will never forgive Nikki. She could rot for all I care, but it's hard because my other family and fiancé didn't know she was lying. Still, I also felt like they abandoned me too quickly without letting me explain my side. I don't know if I should forgive them. Update 1. I'm so sorry if it took too long to post an update. I was honestly in so much shock I didn't know how to cope with it. I never got back to my ex. I didn't know what to do, but eventually he must have given my phone number to my parents as they texted asking to meet up. I never replied and was planning on organizing a Zoom meeting, but didn't need to as my father showed up to my door. When I answered the door and saw him standing there, I ended up throwing up, which he insisted on cleaning. When he was done, he sat down, and I just burst into tears. My emotions were all over the place, and my father has worn the same cologne for a really long time, so when I smelled it, it just brought back all these memories. He tried to hug me, but I pushed him away and asked what he was doing here. He went on to explain that he and my mother are getting a divorce. He said he begged my mother to get in touch with me the minute I left, but she refused and said I was acting like a baby, and if I wanted to leave them after doing something so horrible, then I could do things on my own from then on. He said they arrived back home after New Year's Eve and were planning on inviting me over so we could talk. That's when they got in touch with my friend, and she told them I left and didn't know where I was. I asked him why he didn't listen to my side of the story, and why they threw me away so easily. He just started crying. He said he never meant for things to get so out of hand, and he wishes more than anything he could take it all back. He said he had no idea my mother was going to kick me out. He thought it was going to be for a few days, but then they decided last minute to spend Christmas out of state. My mother apparently promised him I would be allowed back home after they got back. I said she threw away all my stuff, but he said everything was still there and she lied about that. I asked him what has happened to Nikki, and he said she's non-existent to him. He wants nothing to do with her, but my mother has been crying to him, asking to forgive Nikki as she is not well, and they had already lost one daughter. They cannot lose two. He blocked my mother and Nikki and has been on my ex's case about finding me. My ex caved in when my dad said he blocked my mother and Nikki and told him where I lived. I asked that he never show up again unless I give him permission, and he agreed. He asked what would happen now, and I said I really don't know and that he hurt me really bad. I then went into detail about how much he hurt me, and what it felt like seeing them so happy without me and how hard it has been. We were both crying by the end of it, but I was really glad I got it all out. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I asked him why Nikki did this and if she said anything about it. Well, she said she thought my ex deserved better than me, and she wanted to see him happy because he was making too many sacrifices in the relationship. She loved him like a brother and wanted to break the engagement off, so that night she asked her friend to come and escort me out of the club, so she could get photos and take me home so her plan could work. She said nothing intimate happened. I went to sleep on the sofa, and her friend was up playing video games all night until I woke up. I then went to ask about Nikki's husband, and he said my mother has been hush-hush with the entire situation, but he had his number and wrote it down for me. After my dad left, I decided to call Nikki's husband. I was sweating the entire time and felt so sick. What if I could hear her in the background? Well, anyhow, when he picked up, I just spit everything out, which I deeply regret because I should have eased into it for him. He sounded really confused, and I explained the entire situation again. I was honestly expecting him to curse me out and defend Nikki. Instead, he let out a long sigh and well, he had a feeling she wasn't exactly innocent. Turns out, she and his sister have been having problems, and she has been spouting nonstop lies about his sister, causing a huge rift between them. His sister didn't even attend their wedding. I told him I was sorry, but he should make things right with his sister because Nikki was the problem, not her. We spoke a little more, and he hung up. With everything considered, I have decided to reconcile with my dad. My mother has always run the show their entire marriage, so the fact he is putting his foot down and divorcing her and going no contact with Nikki shows he is serious about making amends. I don't think I will ever reconcile with my mother, as she thinks Nikki is a victim also in all this, and at this point, I don't care to listen to her excuses. As for my ex, I haven't had the time to meet with him and talk, though my dad mentioned he wanted to come with him, but he said I would be too overwhelmed if both were there, and seeing them separated will help make clear decisions. I will update the post again if I ever speak to my ex. I'm sitting in the back of my RV as my husband rants about how lovely the trip would be if I hadn't joined him plus updates. I have been writing romance novels since I was in college. I was a relatively successful author and I have made a living off selling my novels ever since. I do not make a lot of money, but I do bring home $40,000 a year in book sales. This allows me to stay at home during the day so I can write and also make crafts to sell in my Etsy shop. A few years after college, I met Tim and we instantly hit it off. We dated for 3 years before tying the knot and we bought a house shortly after. Tim makes his living off his investments and stocks, however, we keep our finances separate. This is because Tim inherited a vast amount of money from his family and before we married, I signed a prenup agreement in order to ease his mind. We both contribute an equal share to the joint bank account for bills, then we use the remainder of our money for ourselves. About a year ago I landed a contract to write part of a romance series. The contract was huge and the payout was over $120,000 for a few months' work. I contributed my share to the joint account and then put the rest of the money into the bank so I could buy an RV. I have always wanted an RV because I love to travel and nothing would make me happier than being able to write while on the road. Tim is often away on business for days at a time, so the RV would give me an opportunity to get out of the house while he is away. After 6 months of deciding, I chose a lightly used RV and purchased it from the owners for a great price. When Tim found out I purchased the RV, he was excited. He has a travel trailer, but it's not the same as an all-in-one RV. He loves RVs and he wanted to immediately take it out for a trip across the state. We took our trip and Tim couldn't stop talking about how much he enjoyed the experience and he started talking about taking more trips together. I gently reminded him that even though the RV is a fun thing for us to have for vacations, that its main purpose is for me to have something to do while he is away for business, but that we would be taking plenty of vacations together. Tim agreed with me and he let it go for a while. The thing is, in the past few weeks, Tim has been badgering me about taking the RV with him on his business trips. He usually flies when he goes to check his rental property/visit family and he is normally gone for 4 to 5 days at a time. We got into an argument because he had to evict a tenant and he wanted to drive the RV across the state in order to do so. I asked him if I could come along, and Tim said he would prefer it if I didn't. I then said that if I couldn't come with him, that he couldn't take my RV. I suggested that he take his travel trailer instead and he got mad and stormed out of the house. About an hour later, he started texting me like nothing had happened and then he said he was taking the RV as if our previous conversation had never happened. I called him and tried to explain that he had just purchased a brand new pickup and that if I didn't get to drive his new truck in his absence, why should he get to take my RV when I am not coming on the trip? Tim and I went back and forth and eventually he said I could come along if it meant that much to me. I said I would, and now I am regretting everything. I am sitting in the back of my own RV with a man who won't let me touch the wheel. It has been 3 days since this trip has started, and all Tim has done is rant about how awesome the RV trip would be if I weren't with him. It has made me question everything in our marriage, from how we split our finances to how we argue and function together. This is the first time that anything like this has ever happened and I don't know what to do in this situation. He is still ranting as I type this and he's never done that before either. Update. When I posted my first post, we were on the road in the RV and my husband was giving me the cold shoulder while he complained at me from the driver's seat. You all had some great advice for me about what I should do, and I listened to a few people who suggested that he might be cheating on me. Tim had left his iPad in the back of the RV to charge while he drove. I'm not proud of this, but I was able to sneak his iPad into the bedroom while he was distracted by the road. He was logged into his email account and I quickly skimmed over his inbox but didn't find anything suspicious. I then had the idea to check his sent folder and found out that he had been chatting up his ex from college. It made me sick to my stomach to read the messages, but luckily they had not yet been physical. Translated from chat speak, the message he had sent his ex was basically, "I can't wait to get my hands on you. It's been years since I felt that mouth. I'm excited." I was disgusted, but I tried to keep calm. We were on the road headed to another state and we planned on stopping at his mother's house. I knew that if his messages were in the sent folder, that meant that he had deleted them. Tim was not planning on being caught and was trying to hide his tracks. He wanted my RV so that he could take his ex around the state and have fun without leaving a credit card trace. I took photos of the emails and sent them to myself in order to preserve the evidence. I then went back to the front of the RV and acted as if everything was fine. I apologized, "Don't worry, I lied," for how I had acted and suggested that we ask his mom to help us work through this. Tim said that he was sorry and that he accepted my apology. He said he was looking forward to using the RV in the future and that he was glad I had come to see reason. I smiled and nodded, but on the inside I was cursing his existence. We made it to his mom's house and I made up an excuse about having to change because my clothes were wrinkled. Tim went inside without me and I started throwing all of his clothes and belongings into a trash bag. I then went inside the house and Tim was sitting with his mom in the kitchen. He asked me what I was doing with the bag and I told him that I was giving him his clothes so that I could leave. Tim then got angry and asked me what the hell was I doing, and his mom was simply confused. She asked me what was going on and I told her, "I'm not sure myself." I'm waiting for Tim to explain why he was planning to cheat on me with his ex. Tim's mom then started to cry and yell at Tim while he tried to calm her down. I know Reddit does not have a lot of love for religion, but Tim's mother is a fundamentalist. She had loved me from the minute Tim introduced me to her, and it would be an understatement to say that she was very upset with her adulterous son. Tim never tried to apologize to me, instead he chased after his mother saying he was sorry to her. This made her cry harder, because she knew that he wasn't even trying to make amends with me, he was just apologizing to her. She hugged me and told me to just go home and she would handle her son. I thanked her and took the RV keys from Tim. This ended up being a minor wrestling match, and left. I drove home crying, but at least I got rid of my jerk ex-husband. Tim called me the next day and begged me to come back to him. He said it was all a mistake, that he was sorry. I asked him why he didn't apologize at his mother's house, why he didn't say he was sorry when I was handing him his bag. I told him that he didn't care about cheating on me, that all he cared about was how bad it made him look to his family. He tried to explain himself, but I cut him off and hung up. I blocked him on all social media and haven't heard anything since. I have gotten a lawyer and have already started the divorce process.
My family wants me to break up with my girlfriend after how she responded to my brother's prank. I'm aware the title might seem odd, but I really need some unbiased opinions, as everyone I could turn to has their own take on the matter. I, 27 male, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend Lola, 22 female, for roughly 2 years, and it's been a wonderful journey overall. However, I've noticed that my brother Ian, 22 male, acts quite strangely whenever Lola is mentioned or present. Ian and I are very close, we talk every day. But whenever I bring up anything about Lola, the conversation quickly shifts. I wondered if he might be jealous of the time I spend with her, or maybe he has a little crush on her. Still, whenever we'd get together, he'd make comments about our age gap, poke fun at me for simping, and joke about her sleep disorder. Ian's always enjoyed a good prank, either pranking or being pranked. He loves to laugh, and I genuinely believe that when he goes to prank people, he means it in a way to share the laughter. When he's tried to pull little pranks on Lola though, he does things that he figured out triggers her disorder, like making sudden loud sounds, jumping out to scare her, and one time I caught him before he was going to do the shaving cream sleep bit while she was taking a nap in the guest room. I warned him in more detail then that he shouldn't mess with her while she's sleeping, as interrupting her regulated cycles isn't good for her, and at the absolute best she's the worst kind of cranky when she's woken up. Ian seemed like he understood, and I thought that was that. I threw a New Year's Eve party a few days ago and invited Ian and a bunch of mine and Lola's friends. Everyone was having a good time. My watch went off with the alarm that we set up for Lola to take a nap, so she went off with a sleepy smile, and I kept partying. A little while later we all heard a scream, followed soon after by cussing and something breaking. I panicked as it was from my room where Lola was, and I ran through nearly kicking the door down, to find she shoved someone down and was yelling at them. I looked to see who it was, and I saw a spider mask that I unfortunately recognized as Ian's from years ago. I caught a glimpse of Ian hurrying to escape, but Lola only stopped when 3 of her friends pushed past me to pull her up and check her before she ultimately passed out in their arms. Ian quickly got up from the floor and tore off the mask, revealing the damage she'd managed to do to him in the time it took us to react. He burst into tears, insisting to me that she was out of control and abusive, claiming his only intention was to ensure she didn't sleep through the New Year's Eve countdown. At this point everyone started yelling. Ian looked terrified and kept repeating that she was crazy and that I shouldn't be with someone who could do this to her boyfriend's brother. Some of my guys were yelling that if she did it to him she could do it to me. All of her friends were screaming about how he should know to leave a sleeping girl alone and how it was creepy. Ian ended up calling our mom to tell him that Lola hurt him, and she's furious. Lola's friends ended up carrying her out against my protests, and my friends were nearly split down the middle. I remember standing there while everyone argued while the ball dropped, my mother calling me for the 10th time, and Lola finally texting me that she needs space to think. Since then we've lightly texted, and she's expressed that she can't shake her fear of what happened, but she still hasn't told me from her side what happened. Ian and my mom are trying to convince me to break up with her, and chastising me for not helping or standing up for my brother when he was being assaulted, also demanding an apology for not playing my part as an older brother. Ian has FaceTimed a few other family members and now my aunt, who paid for both our colleges and the house my mom and brother live in and helped me get my apartment, is taking the 3-hour drive up to make sure her boys are okay, which is stressing me out even more. On one hand, I know family is family and I should do what I can to stand up for the people who helped raise me and become the person I am. On the other hand, Lola is my girlfriend, I adore her, I love her, I feel like I should be there to protect her. I don't want to push her boundaries, but not talking to her is a different kind of hurt. Ian is convinced that he was doing a well-intended prank and was wrongfully punished for wanting to make sure everyone was enjoying themselves. I don't know if I believe that, but I've known Ian for 22 years, growing up we were inseparable. I don't want to doubt him just because love may be blinding me. How do I approach the situation with Lola? How can I convince my family that Lola isn't a threat? She's honestly the most sweet and caring person. She just can't be woken up and part of me feels like she was pushed to that point.
My husband wanted to open up our marriage, so I started dating his boss. Now he wants to close it. Part 2. The last time I posted, my husband had just found out about his boss and me dating. After my husband saw his boss kiss me at his place of work, he put the pieces together, and it made him upset enough to ask me to close our marriage back up. I was so torn. I felt bad to see my husband hurting, but he had left me in a place of hurt for so long after asking for this arrangement in the first place. I admit I was tempted by the things my husband said in the conversation where he asked to close our relationship again. He just kept saying over and over that he would be better and committed. He kept saying I was the only thing he needed in the world, and he had been blind to that before. These were all words I had been waiting and wishing to hear for so long. Yet hearing them now, I felt nothing but pity for my husband. I still loved him. We had been together for almost 10 years, and what I felt for him was incredibly strong after being life partners for this long. But I still love myself more, and as I said in my initial post, I had strong feelings for my boyfriend already. I told my husband that I loved him, but I had a say in this relationship too, and I didn't want to close our marriage back up. He was a mess at this answer. At one point, he got on his knees to beg me to reconsider, but I stood firm. I wouldn't hurt myself again to prioritize my husband's feelings. For the next couple of months, my husband went through a disorienting array of behaviors towards me. For the first few months, he was incredibly loving and attentive to me. He was cooking for us every night and insisted we have dinner almost every night together at home. He bought me flowers every day for 2 months and tried to initiate intimacy literally every single night. These are all things he's never really done for me before, so I was surprised and happy with all these changes. Although it did seem sort of performative of him to only start being a good husband now in an effort to win me back for himself. If he did love me, where had this treatment been before? He still seemed sad on the nights when I left him to go see my boyfriend, and I noticed he was seeing his own girlfriend less and less. Anyway, I was feeling conflicted, but my boyfriend and I's relationship continued to blossom as we learned more about each other and kept spending time together. About a month ago, my boyfriend had taken me on a very luxurious and intimate date. He reserved an entire restaurant for us and then arranged a helicopter ride for us after dinner. It was such a beautiful and romantic night and we had an amazing time together. There was no special occasion, and when I asked him why he had done all this, he said he just wanted to show me how much he appreciated his time with me, and I deserved to be treated like the catch that I am. Before I left my boyfriend's house the next morning, I broke down crying while venting to him, saying that I wished my situation could be less complicated and that I was sorry if he felt like our relationship was unconventional because I was still a married woman. My boyfriend just listened and held me as I cried. He held me and stroked my hair and said he didn't care about my husband, he was just grateful for any time he got to spend with me, and that I was a blessing in his life, and he was just happy he got to meet a wonderful woman like me. Then he got up to make me my favorite flavor of tea. He had found out my favorite brand of tea a month ago and kept it stocked at his apartment since then. When he handed me the tea, he looked into my eyes and asked if it could be his turn to be honest with me. That's when he told me that he had never met anyone like me and that he had fallen in love with me. As soon as he said that, something just felt so right in my body and mind. I said it back to him, and we cried happy tears together. We Didn't worry about anything else at that moment, we just enjoyed the vulnerability, nothing could ruin that pure moment for us. Or so I thought, but I still don't regret telling him the truth about my feelings. I do love him, but I wish it hadn't. Resulted in the mess that it did. After my boyfriend returned to work after this date, I guess he had started telling some of his coworkers about how well his relationship had been going, and it must have gotten back to my husband. My husband didn't react well, and I almost dropped my phone when he called me the other day from the police station. That's when I found out that my husband had attacked my boyfriend at their place of work. Apparently, he had overheard some people talking about how his boss had been bragging about his partner, and it had sent him over the edge. He sounded like such a jealous child on the phone. He had entered his boss's office in a jealous rage and tried to punch him straight in the face. When my boyfriend deflected, my husband picked up a coffee mug and smashed it across his head. The cops had arrested him in front of his entire office, and I assumed my boyfriend had gone to the hospital for a head wound. My husband spoke on the phone with so much hate and bitterness, and during that call, I realized the sane, good man I had once married was long gone, and the last bit of love I had for him wilted inside my chest. He spoke about himself as if he were a victim instead of an unhinged criminal who had attacked another man for his own ignorant reasons. He said that he just couldn't stand his boss keeping us apart, and he had just gotten so angry after hearing that he was talking about me as if I was his wife instead. I said nothing on the phone, I just thought about the choices I faced. I could go bail my husband out of the police station, or I could go visit my boyfriend in the hospital.
My hypocrite daughter wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle instead of me. But she took it back real quick when I refused to pay for the wedding. When my daughter was 12, her mother cheated on me and married the man she cheated with. I hated my ex-wife with a passion at that time and wanted to get as far as away from her, but I didn't. I wanted my daughter to grow up in a normal environment and not surrounded by hate everywhere. So I split custody with my ex-wife and made sure that our daughter's mental health wouldn't be affected. We never told her about the cheating as a way to protect her. My ex's new husband quickly became her stepdad, and I didn't have a problem with it. Whenever my daughter would come back after spending time at their house, I would just be happy that she had fun. She would tell me how fun her new stepdad was and that she loved him, which was cute in my opinion. I still had to work a lot of hours, but I made sure to spend proper time with her. For her 17th birthday, I chipped in with her mom and got her a new car. I do make more money than she and her husband, so I paid more than her, but it wasn't a big deal. She absolutely loved it and thanked her for it. I thought it was a bit weird that she didn't offer me a thank you even though we had both paid for it, but I didn't dwell on it. After she turned 18, she began spending more and more time at her mom's house. But I was confident in the way I had raised her and trusted her to make her own, adult decisions. As a result, she got a lot of independence from my side and basically did what she wanted. I didn't maintain friendly contact with her mom outside of what my daughter was doing, so I don't know how she spent her time there. But little did I know, I was allowing my ex-wife to steal my daughter away. Anyway, I helped her get into the best college in our city and fully paid her tuition so she wouldn't have to get a job. That way, she could focus on her academics or whatever it was that she wanted to do in life. Looking back, there was once again a lack of gratitude from her side, but I never asked for a thanks. I did what I did because I wanted to. She is 26 now, living in her own house, and was just proposed to by the love of her life whom she luckily met in college. I was so happy for her and called her to congratulate her. During that call, I also offered to pay for her wedding because it was going to be her special day. I knew her now fiancé was a good man, and would take good care of her. So I wanted to give her away in style. She was very excited to hear that and said that I just made her even more happy. She began planning a destination wedding in Italy with the large budget that I had provided. But then, a couple days later, she called me to tell me the worst news of my life. She wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle instead of me. I obviously didn't agree to it and asked her why. I loved her a lot and wanted to do this for her, and she had absolutely no reason to walk with another man. But she began telling me that it's not a big deal, and that it's just something he wants to do. I said that I also want to do it, and that I also have the right to do it since I'm her actual father. She began screaming at me, telling me to calm down even though I didn't even raise my voice. She said that it was her choice and she had decided on her stepdad, and that I didn't have a say in it. I didn't hear anything after that because my mind had shut down. I just put the phone down and desperately tried to hold my tears back. I have no idea why she would do this. I gave her everything and made sure she was happy and never neglected. Heck, I even kept in contact with the woman who broke my heart. I got texts from my ex-wife calling me a horrible person, and that I was ruining my daughter's wedding by making unreasonable demands. I screenshotted it and sent it to my daughter, thinking that she would apologize for what her mother had said. But to my shock, she agreed with that statement, and that I should leave her alone. So, in her mind, me asking to be her dad was an unreasonable demand. After a few more hours of crying, my eyes had really opened and I had come to a decision. I decided that I would no longer be paying for the wedding. I knew that they would not be able to afford a destination wedding without my support, but I didn't care. My daughter didn't seem to want me there at all, so why would I pay for something that I can't even attend? But after I sent that text, my phone began blowing up. My ex was suddenly very apologetic about her behavior. My daughter began saying she didn't mean what she said, and that it was all a joke. She said that of course I can walk her down the aisle, if I agree to still pay for my wedding in Italy. However, I just texted her this: "Don't worry, I don't want to buy your love with money. I will leave you alone just like you wanted." That was the last message I sent to her, and a few weeks passed by. Of course, she and her mother kept texting me, saying that I am a horrible person for backing out of paying like that. Some texts made me laugh though, so I never blocked them. They even got other family members and friends to text me and ask me to take back my words, but I ignored everyone. And today, I finally replied to my daughter's countless texts. I uploaded a selfie on Instagram with my new yacht in Monaco, with the caption, "Oops, all the wedding budget was blown on this baby. Guess I'm not invited anymore." My idiot girlfriend decided to put laxatives in my sister's drink during her graduation party, and my sister exploded. My girlfriend is someone who can only be described as not the sharpest tool in the shed. Some of her highlights including breaking the toaster by trying to toast a peanut butter jelly sandwich, destroying the shower head by trying to hang on it and do pull-ups, and pulling idiotic pranks. These pranks are mostly harmless, with things like salt in coffee being a favorite of hers. However, she does not know when she is not to push the limit and when she has crossed boundaries. This is something I know and forgive her for, but it has caused some serious conflict between family members. Last year she decided to prank my father on Christmas by giving him a box of bullets. My father has served in the army, but he found it surprisingly funny. It was my mother who thought this was way too far and gave out to my girlfriend. Now this prank itself isn't very bad, but a few months ago she decided to prank my family again, and this time the prank was a little too far. She decided it would be a good idea to plant firecrackers everywhere in the house while she was visiting. On every chair, toilet seat and couch. Wherever you could sit down, a firecracker was there. It took my parents 3 days of torment until they managed to get rid of every single firecracker. My parents were furious with my girlfriend. They ended up going low contact with her and told me not to bring her over again. This hurt my girlfriend deeply, but after a long talk with her, she accepted their reasoning. I told her she had seriously crossed a line and she should not be surprised that my parents reacted this way. I have to give it to her, she made some serious progress over the next few months. She did not pull a single prank, not even on me, and I ended up telling my parents about her progress. They were very pleased, and my sister decided to invite my girlfriend to her college graduation. The graduation happened a week ago, and it's safe to say my girlfriend will never speak to my family again, and I am inches away from breaking up with her. So this graduation party was held for all family members after the official graduation, and it was held at my parents' house. I talked to my girlfriend before it and told her not to pull any pranks as my parents are pleased with the progress she was making. She promised she would not. Most of the party went without a hitch, with my girlfriend conversing with everyone and my family seeming to enjoy her company. This meant a lot to me and I was very glad with this development. But then something weird happened. I was talking to my sister, just shooting the poop, when all of a sudden she excused herself and literally sprinted upstairs. Wondering what just happened but not giving it too much thought, I got myself another drink. 15 minutes went by and my sister was still in the toilet. I went to check on her and I heard her crying. I asked her what's wrong and she told me to give her a minute. I obliged and went downstairs. The first person I saw was my girlfriend, so I decided to ask her if she knew anything. My girlfriend was a bit tipsy, and therefore did not hesitate to laugh and aloud say, "Oh yeah, I slipped some liquid laxatives into her drink." I knew I was going to pull this prank on someone tonight, I just didn't know who. Don't get mad though, what's the worst that's gonna happen? I was appalled when she said this, and refused to say anything to her besides telling her she effed up. I went back upstairs to check on my sister and she came out by that point. Not gonna lie, the laxatives did some damage. It looked like she had pooped 3 days worth of breakfast, lunch and dinner out, with the toilet looking very much brown, and even a large chunk of the seat and outer portion of the toilet was covered in quickly drying brown. My sister started to cry, which got the attention of my parents. Her white dress had some stains of brown on it, and I could understand why she was so mad. I would be too. The whole time I kept thinking whether or not I should tell her what really happened, but I decided against it for the time being. My sister ended up causing a scene and telling everyone to leave the party prematurely, which included my girlfriend and I. My girlfriend and I had a huge and long talk when we were home, where she begged me not to tell my parents and my sister what happened, and she promised in turn not to speak to them again. This whole event has shown me a very immature side to my girlfriend, and for the past week I've been seriously thinking of ending the relationship. I still haven't told my parents though, I don't know if I should. Update: my golden child sister deliberately made her wedding day the same day as our younger sister's graduation, so I've convinced my entire family not to attend the wedding. It's been 2 days since the wedding and a lot of stuff has gone down. So, last Friday Leo and I went to speak to our parents and my golden child sister Erin. I wanted to tell them that I'd be pulling my son from the wedding. Our older siblings ended up turning up as well, so it was us four standing up for our younger sister Nadia. Leo had spoken to them the night before, and helped them see things more clearly from Nadia's eyes. Apparently, It didn't sink in with them that Erin chose the date intentionally. There was a lot of yelling. Erin accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding. Our parents tried to convince me to let them take my son to the wedding, but I stood my ground. I felt a lot stronger with my older siblings with me. There's only 2 years between me and Erin after all. Luckily, the oldest Lydia was there. Her words carry more weight as the eldest, and she didn't give Erin or my parents room to argue as she told them that Erin chose the date intentionally, admitted as much in front of me and Leo, and that this was normal behavior for her. Lydia told them that if they continued to favor Erin so blatantly, the rest of us would go no contact. Our dad started yelling. Not at us, but at Erin surprisingly. I've never seen him so angry before, and to see it directed at Erin was shocking. Our mom asked us to leave. We didn't hear from anyone on that side until Monday when Erin's fiancé George asked to meet us at our parents'. He apologized to Nadia. He didn't know that the wedding and graduation overlapped, nor did he know that it was something Erin did on purpose. Our dad was the one to tell him. What followed was a long talk between us during which we all aired our grievances. I told our parents that we all felt that they valued Erin more. That none of us mattered to them. Compared to her. Her artwork always went up on the fridge, ours always went in the drawer. I told them that, as a parent, I could never imagine treating my child like that. Erin tried to argue. She tried to tell us that we were trying to turn her into a bad guy, trying to turn our parents against her, trying to sabotage her wedding. Our mom told her to be quiet and that it was our time to talk. George stepped in to tell us that he didn't expect us to attend the wedding, but we were welcome to attend the reception. He went so far as to say that he wished he could have canceled the wedding altogether, but it only cost him more money that he'd spent by bringing it forward. Mom's willingness to hear us out lasted less than 24 hours. By Tuesday, she was begging us to reconsider. Apparently our feelings meant nothing in the face of Erin's dire stress and the fact that people would be questioning our absence on the big day. I haven't spoken to my mom since, but I did ask my dad to bring me some of Nadia's things because she is going to be staying with me full time. We have officially gone no contact with our mother. Dad took Nadia out for an early graduation celebration on Wednesday. They had a daddy-daughter date that I think she really needed. He apologized for a lot of things and told her he wanted to do the same with the rest of us. But Wednesday was about her. I'm happy she got that one-on-one time with him. She was happy coming home to me. In our sibling group chat, she said that she really thinks Dad is going to try to mend bridges with us, even if Mom won't. Dad also turned up early yesterday morning to give Nadia flowers. He told her that he was proud of her. George even called while he was getting ready for his big day to congratulate Nadia, which I really appreciated. We didn't hear from Mom or Erin. Our paternal grandma ended up coming to the graduation with us. It was a great day. We didn't think about the wedding, didn't think about Erin. We just had fun together. My son got to wear his aunt's cap and gown and nearly drowned in the fabric. Our grandma tried on the cap too. We took photos and sent them to our dad, who posted them in a Facebook post he wrote to congratulate both Erin on her wedding and Nadia on her graduation, and we laughed about how it must have ticked off our newly wedded sister. We went out for dinner and we, as siblings, gifted Nadia money for a week away with her best friend. Things are going well right now, but I doubt Erin will let them stay that way. My entitled sister destroyed my Christmas present because it was more expensive than hers, so my parents sold hers and gave me the money. My sister is very entitled and has been this way ever since we were young. She would throw tantrums over tiny things such as not being allowed to eat sweets before dinner when she was as little as 5 or 6, or literally hit my parents in shops if they told her they could not afford the expensive doll she wanted, and at first my parents would just give in as to avoid causing problems. This enabled my sister's behavior, however, and she became a sort of tyrant, and by 7 or 8 years old she made family decisions for everything, such as holidays, dinners, outings, anything you can think of. It's very weird to see your parents bending over backwards to accommodate everything a 10-year-old demands, but that was my life for a few years. When my sister reached 11 though, my parents put their foot down and told her they were done giving her everything she wants, and they kept true to their word. This caused my sister to go berserk, and she destroyed my dad's jacket in protest to this. This only added fuel to what my parents were doing, and they really doubled down on their efforts to get my sister's entitlement under control. This manifested into resentment towards me for my sister, as she said I had more freedom than she did. It did not cross her mind that this was because I was 15 and she was 12, or it was because I never did things that she did. To her I was just the golden child, and she started playing the narrative of being the neglected child. So much so that one day my parents got a call from the school telling us that we were going to be investigated for child neglect, as my sister had stated that our parents don't give her food and she's always hungry in school. Of course the investigation was over quickly and it was proved there was no sign of neglect. My sister has continued this woe is me attitude up until now, and she is 14 years old. What led up to this big blowout at Christmas was when my parents first asked us what we wanted, and I asked for a new phone considering mine was on its last leg. My sister told them to surprise her. And that was that. Nothing else was ever discussed about the presents. Until a dinner at the end of November. My sister out of nowhere joked that just like always, my present was probably going to be more expensive and more lavish because she is the black sheep and I am the golden child. I asked her why she feels the need to play the victim constantly, and she said it's because she was. We ate in silence as none of us wanted to escalate it into an argument, as there is no way other with my sister. Well, Christmas morning came 2 days ago and we opened our presents. I got a new phone just like I asked for, an iPhone 13, and I was overjoyed. I also got some other small things like deodorant, socks, the standard things. It was my sister's turn to open hers up and she did. She ended up getting a small Gucci bag, as well as Versace perfume, on top of brand new shoes which she has wanted for a while now. Oh, and she got a very fancy makeup palette. Every single time she opened up her present she rolled her eyes, and even when she got to the shoes which she had been wanting, our parents got a lukewarm thanks and that was that. She damn near went upstairs crying with how disappointed she was with her presents, and I could not figure out why. She came back down an hour later saying that she was right and that her presents did not cost nearly as much as mine did, and she said she did the math to prove it. She literally pulled out a calculator and said she had found all the retail prices of her presents and compared them to my phone. Presents ended up being more expensive by around $200. She then demanded to have the $200 in cash. My parents told her she was being ridiculous and that there was no way on God's green earth they would do that. Commence her flying into a rage. I don't know why I left my new phone out on the table and did not have it in my pocket when she flew off the handle, but in my defense I never expected my sister to be insane. Well, in her fit of rage she took my phone and completely obliterated it by yeeting it at the wall very hard. It smashed on impact and fell to the ground, and chaos erupted. My mother literally yanked my sister back by the shoulder as she was dressing to leave the house to avoid backlash. I picked what was left of my phone up and went upstairs with it. I felt extremely hurt by what she did, but I figured I would let my parents take care of it for now and I would have a word with it later. I heard my dad yell, and when my dad yells everyone takes note as he has the ability to be really scary due to his former experience as a SEAL. I don't know what was said as they talked quietly, but around 10 minutes later I heard my sister go into her room while crying. It hurt that she did not even come in to apologize, I gotta say. My mother then came in and told me not to look up prices on getting the phone fixed as they were going to deal with this themselves. Sure enough, 2 days later my parents handed me a huge wad of wash. I asked them what this was about and they told me that they sold my sister's presents and are giving me the cash to hopefully get my phone fixed. Getting the phone fixed will cost me less than they gave me, and they told me I can keep the rest of the cash and use it however I'd like. I asked how my sister reacted and they told me that the fact she has been staying at her friend's house for the last day and a half should tell me all I need to know. When did you realize your open marriage was a terrible idea? A week ago, I discovered my husband was on a dating app. He was showering and I had picked up his phone to order our taxi as the app was not working on my phone. The Tinder app icon covered my face on a screensaver photo of us. We were both 33 and been married for 2 years. I clicked on the icon and went through his profile. In his bio, he described himself as a single man looking for subtle fun. He listed his interests as music, movies, sports, reading and going to the gym. This almost made me laugh. This man had not been to a gym in his life but was one of those lucky individuals who seemed to be in naturally good shape despite eating an ungodly amount of trash. He also wouldn't be able to tell anybody where the nearest bookshop was. All his photos were from our holiday in Europe. He had cropped me out of every single one. He had several active chats with different women. I heard the water turn off in the shower and threw his phone back onto the pillow on his side of the bed. I told him I no longer felt like going out to dinner and he started yelling about how I always changed my mind about everything. I curled up into a ball and told him to leave me alone. Then I started sobbing and he let the towel fall from around his waist. He got dressed in the jeans and shirt I had picked out for him. He stormed out of the house. I tortured myself imagining himself going to meet another woman from the app where we had originally met. I called my sister, my mother and many of my friends. They all instructed me to leave him, and I insisted I could not. I simply loved the man too much. I wanted us to be one of those couples who grew old together and spent their twilight years knowing that they lived a life filled with love. I told myself that I would continue to let him use the app and have his flings as long as he always returned to me. I did not even plan to let him know that I knew. I did want to put him under more stress or inflict more guilt than he probably already felt. That's how much I loved him. My husband got home around 3 a.m. I could only smell beer and sweat on him. No perfume. He apologized for losing his cool and I said I regretted not going to dinner. We had sex and he fell asleep shortly afterwards. I slid his phone from under the pillow. My husband also did not know that I knew he used my birthday as the passcode on his phone. I used this fact to remind myself that he really did love me and then went back onto his Tinder. I took photographs with my own phone. His profile. His Tinder premium membership which gave him unlimited swipes. His matches. The messages they exchanged. The profiles of his matches. I slid the phone back under his pillow. Like I said, I did not mind my husband having his fun, but I wanted to know all about it. I parked outside the supermarket and looked through the window. I saw her at register number 7, the woman my husband had been seeing the most. The woman he saw on the night I discovered his presence on the app. She had served me many times while I bought food for me and my husband. Her eyes locked onto me as I walked through the door. I picked up a basket and shopped like there was nothing wrong. I picked out all his favorite foods, and wondered if she would recognize them. Their messages indicated they genuinely liked each other. They were more than just sex, but less than a romantic threat. They were friends with benefits. He had reiterated early in their exchanges that he had no plans to leave me, which made me very happy but did not dampen my curiosity about the girls he visited. I lined up at her register, although the case were shorter at others. She was somehow prettier in person. She was only 19. She had all the beauty and glow of youth. She told me she was sorry, and I saw a tear roll down her cheek. I noticed my hands had been shaking as I lifted the items out of the basket and placed them on the conveyor belt. She obviously sensed my knowledge of truth. I handed her a tissue from my purse and told her to pull herself together. I asked her what time she clocked off, and after she answered I said I would pick her up. I warned her not to speak to my husband before our meeting. At 7 o'clock, I collected the woman. She shivered as I drove, and I put on the heating. I got us both milkshakes at the McDonald's driveway and parked at the entrance to the forest on the outside of the town. By now, her hands were shaking, but I told her to relax. I promised I was not going to hurt her. I said I just wanted somewhere quiet where me and her could talk. She started rambling and I could not understand her. I insisted she calm down, have some of her strawberry shake and speak slower. She detailed how he said we had an open marriage. He had claimed I was also on the app and regularly seeing other men. She informed me that he met several women around town. I wondered how many people in my hometown thought I slept around and was in an open marriage. Although such spousal behavior may have enraged many people, my main priority was still retaining my husband and keeping my marriage intact. I explained to her that I did not want him to know that I knew. I told her that I did not mind her sleeping with my husband as long as she would never try to take him away from me. The teenager then started sobbing about how she could never possibly continue seeing him after this supposedly horrendous experience. I lifted my purse from between my purse, pulled out a fistful of notes and dropped them onto her lap. I asked her if this brought back his appeal. The sobbing girl counted the notes and wiped her eyes, which dried remarkably quickly. She nodded quickly and pocketed the cash. I started the car and drove her home. I realized I was paying this woman to continue sleeping with my husband, and I laughed. That night, as I laid beside my husband in bed and smiled at his cute snores, I felt satisfied. Although the cashier was the only one who sensed that I knew, I scouted out all the women my husband was sleeping with. I concluded each of them was worthy of such a magnificent man but would also not threaten our marriage. After 20 minutes of failing to sleep, I got an idea. Why not make his lies into truths? Why not let him know that I knew about his affairs, but did not mind? Then I thought he would not mind if I also had my fun on the side. I also felt certain this would alleviate any guilt he felt about sleeping around. I thought an equal playing field would equal a happy marriage. I downloaded Tinder on my phone and quickly set up a profile. I kept him in my pictures. I was certainly not ashamed of our now open marriage. I copied his interests exactly. I thought that was cute. In my bio, I described myself as a happily married woman who wanted a bit of fun on the side. The matches immediately came flooding in. The back of my phone started feeling overly hot and I briefly worried it would explode. I started conversing with a man 2 years older than me. That's one way I did differ from my husband. I could never sleep with anybody significantly younger. This man complimented my appearance and made me laugh with cheesy pickup lines. I agreed to meet him that night. I turned to tell my husband I was acceptive of unfaithfulness and was going out to officially make our marriage open like he had been telling everybody. I felt a tingle of stomach of how happy a reaction he would have. Then I decided to let my beautiful king enjoy his sleep and came up with an even better way of telling him the marvelous news. My Tinder match picked me up in his pickup truck outside our home. The neighbor's bedroom curtains twitched as the match drove off with me in the passenger seat and his hand on me. His house was on the other side of town and our hands got very adventurous on the way over while Taylor Swift played on the radio. I had never been happier in my entire life, and I felt my marriage had never been in a better place. We were both getting the thrill of new flames but also got to retain the love from our marriage. The man had a nice house on the other side of town. He poured 2 glasses of expensive wine and took me upstairs. We had a long, deeply satisfying time together. When he had finally finished, I asked for a selfie. I wanted a photograph to accompany the text informing my husband of the wonderfully legitimate openness of our marriage. The man smiled and stuck up his thumb. I tiled my head slightly sideways and stuck out my tongue. Immediately after I sent the text, my husband called me. I answered the phone with the biggest smile on my face, and immediately burst into tears when he said the word divorce. My wife wanted to open our marriage. I have a new lover, and now, she regrets everything. Never once did I think I would get to this point. But here we are. My wife and I have been together for 10 years, but married for 8. We met in college and were each other's first and only. I honestly thought we had a unique and beautiful relationship because of that. But it appears that was just me some time ago. My wife began working at a new company. At first, she found it difficult to fit in because she's always been reserved. But after encouragement from me, she made friends with a group of girls, some of whom were single, divorced or dating, but not married. My wife wanted to open our marriage. At first I was happy. She made friends, but then she started going out for drinks and partying. I became concerned by her change in behavior and tried to talk to her about it, but at the same time didn't want to restrict her in any way. It started to affect our relationship in the bedroom. My wife wasn't one to initiate intimacy, but with her continued going out, she was either too tired or wasn't in the mood. At some point, her company got a new manager whom my wife and her friends had taken a liking to. She began mentioning him in passing, but it got to a point where she was pointing out how he handled certain problems that didn't seem to be work-related. I questioned her on her fascination with this man, and she brushed off my concerns. She even started asking if I regretted not having more experience with women. To which I said no, because she is all I ever needed. For a moment, I saw a flash of sadness in her eyes, but she quickly changed the subject. She started mentioning open marriage as a way to spice things up. I was taken aback because my wife has never been this kind of person, to be honest. I had refused at first, but then started to question if this had anything to do with the new manager, to which she denied, but said she felt like she missed out, but at the same time didn't want to lose me. So this was a safer option. I wondered if she was playing with fire, then reluctantly and naively agreed. So, for a year, my wife goes on dates. As one-night stands, then, as if I didn't see it coming somehow is in some kind of relationship with that manager. On the other hand, I had a few dates, but no one-night stands because it frequently felt wrong to me. My wife would ask if I was fine, but it really wouldn't change her behavior. At some point, I felt the love I had for her was gone, and it was killing me inside. I ended up going on a date with an amazing woman who migrated over from South Korea. Of course, this led to more dates until we were intimate. I honestly never had intimacy like I had with this woman. I never knew a woman could be so giving and make one feel so desirable. At first, my wife thought it was cute, but as the months went by, she began questioning my relationship with my lover. I promptly pointed out that this was her idea and that she was in a relationship with the manager I was concerned about. She was silent. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she held her tongue. She began coming home early to surprise me with dinner and get the house extra clean. She also started coming to my workplace to drop off lunch and began to initiate intimacy in the bedroom. Honestly, if it wasn't for her opening up our marriage, all this would have had me jumping for joy. I barely gave in to her attempts at intimacy, and when I did, it was simply to get it over with. Something in me towards my wife had died, so it didn't hit the same. I asked what brought this change in her. The response I got was that she wants to show me that she loves me and is happy with me. I never intended to, but I burst out laughing. I asked, "What about your little group of friends, your manager, lover, or your one-night stands?" She didn't respond that day, and simply went to bed in tears. The next day, I got home to find her waiting for me. She told me she wants to close our marriage. She said this whole experience was a horrible mistake. I regret everything and want us to be focused on our relationship again. I told her to be honest with me and tell me what inspired all this in the first place. And wouldn't you know it? It was for a group of friends that planted the idea because of their numerous intimate exploits. And when her manager came around, he surprisingly supported that lifestyle and encouraged my wife to live free, apparently. It developed into an emotional affair, but only got physical once the marriage opened. She described it as being drunk behind the wheel of a speeding car. It was thrilling and intoxicating, but the price of the decision has become too much for her to bear. She sees now that she never needed a comparison and that what we had was truly unique and special. But now she feels like she murdered our marriage and any chance of a life together. I told her I might not ever be able to see her as my wife again. This made her break down in front of me. I simply held her in silence as she cried until she fell asleep in my arms on the couch. She has since left her job and cut off contact with all of her friends and her manager. But I haven't cut contact with my lover. Quite frankly, she makes me feel like a man. The truth is, I don't know what to do in this situation. I would love to get the special feeling back if possible, but my lover basically saved me when I was at my lowest. So I decided to seek therapy. The therapist seemed nice and experienced. She appeared unbiased and actually eager to help. Even in the very first session, my wife took it as an opportunity to lay it all out. She confessed that this group of friends made her wonder if she had missed her chance because she was committed to her first boyfriend and had no other experiences. She then added that after the new manager started approaching her, some of these friends encouraged her to see where it goes and that this was a chance for her to discover herself. She obviously felt guilty, so she never did anything physical until one of the divorced ones suggested an open marriage as a loophole and told her, some couples come out stronger because of it. So after regrettably convincing me to open up the marriage, her so-called adventure began. It was intoxicating and blinding, but lacked real substance. Not like the kind we built over the years. She started to question her reasons for doing this. She said she could see the hurt in my eyes, but told herself this was an adventure. The gravity of it all never really hit her until she noticed the change in me. She said she suddenly felt a pit in her stomach. She started to get panic attacks for no reason. She went to her friends for advice again, but they said it was a normal reaction for her to have during the adventure. She realized how ridiculous this all was, and begged them to help her win me back. But they just told her she couldn't deal with it. Why did she open her marriage in the first place? She knew in there that these people were toxic and a threat to our marriage and the life we built. Hence, she's been on a mission to win me back by any means necessary. I didn't share much, but I did let the counselor know about the situation on my side with my lover still in the picture. The counselor said no resolution could ever be reached with my lover still in the picture and suggested we book another appointment after tomorrow. During our second session of counseling, I asked if she was sure nothing physical happened before the opening of our marriage. She looked towards the ground and begged me not to make her say it. She said it would destroy us. But after some pushing, she shared that it wasn't physical. But they did touch themselves in front of each other. This moron convinced her that since it wasn't physical, it wasn't technically cheating. I was absolutely floored by this. And she started shaking and hyperventilating. Snot even began flowing from her nostrils as she cried and apologized to me. At this point, even the counselor was taken aback and had a look of disbelief. My wife got on her knees and hugged my legs, saying how sorry she was. I then asked her what really changed her view of him. She said that one evening, as she was leaving a meeting, she passed his office and heard him speaking about her to another male colleague. He said he was surprised at how easy it was to get her and how she is living. Proof that you can't trust the quiet ones. When a colleague asked if he actually fancied her, his response was that she was a pleasant distraction and he had absolutely no intention of breaking up with his fiancée. He also mentioned how he felt bad for me. But you snooze, you lose my wife. Upon realizing that she was nothing more than a piece of meat to this man, added by the fact that she betrayed me for a cheap thrill, actually made her want to end herself. At that moment, she said she left her workplace and puked in the parking lot. I then asked her if she loved him, and when it was that she stopped loving me. She looked me dead in the eye through tears and said she never stopped loving me, which honestly makes it worse. She thought it was love, but now realizes how foolish she was. She squeezed my arm with surprising strength and said she knows she messed up, but she misses us and the connection we had before all this. She even suggested we move away and start fresh. Just the two of us. Just as it was meant to be. I then told her it wouldn't be fair to my lover and that I need time away from her to process all this. She started sobbing harder and saying incoherent things. She held on to me, as if I was going to disappear. The counselor managed to convince her that maybe time apart could help us heal. When we got home, I began to pack. My wife got a video call from her laptop from one of her former friends in tears. It turns out that after my wife resigned, this friend and the manager began a fling of their own. But apparently, she had a pregnancy scare. To make matters worse, she had a boyfriend whom she apparently could see a future with. And the only reason why she even had a fling was because she was curious about the experience. Funny how that seems to be a trend. Her boyfriend found out because he discovered an email between the two discussing the potential pregnancy, but the manager accused her of baby trapping him. I just turned and left. I've been staying in an apartment ever since.
My entitled husband allowed his best man to propose on our wedding day even though I said no. Now he's regretting everything because I want a divorce. Me and my husband have been planning this wedding for over a year. We were agreeing on everything except when the matter of the guest list came up. Now, I knew that my boyfriend was going to make his friend, Jacob, as his best man. Jacob can be a little self-centered at times. When we go out with friends, he would always order the most expensive meal and then later argue that we split the bill evenly because that was just less work. He often makes and cancels plans as he wishes, even though it can mess up my entire schedule. This one time, I was planning on going on a lovely dinner date with my boyfriend. But Jacob showed up at our house unannounced with drinks, and said that he wanted to spend some time with his best friend. I tried telling him that we aren't free today, but my boyfriend insisted that we have our date next week since Jacob was already here. That being said, I supported my boyfriend's decision of making him the best man, because it was his choice and not mine. I thought that I could tolerate him for one day for my future husband's sake, but I was wrong. A few months ago, my boyfriend randomly said that Jacob wanted to propose at our wedding reception. I firmly rejected that idea, because that day was meant for us and not him. Of course, I would be very happy to help him in his proposal, but doing it on our wedding day was just stealing the attention from the newly married couple. I had heard other stories of people doing this, and absolutely despised the idea. My boyfriend agreed with me and told Jacob that he can propose on a later date, or so I thought. Leading up to the wedding, I was asked multiple times whether he could do his proposal during our reception. Jacob argued that it would be the only day where they would both be dressed formally for the pictures, and he wanted a good memory. Every single time I had to shut it down by saying that that day was special to us, and I didn't want to have it ruined. I was surprised that they were so insistent, especially my boyfriend. I wanted my special day to be perfect, and explained that to my boyfriend for the fourth time 1 month before the wedding. That was the last day we talked about this, and I thought they had finally given up on the idea. On the day of the wedding, I noticed my now husband and Jacob talking in secret a few times, but I ignored it thinking it was nothing. Everything, including the ceremony, went amazingly up until the reception. We were sitting, watching a slideshow of our beautiful memories and were about to do our couple's dance, when Jacob suddenly snatched the mic and instructed everyone to be quiet. He had already performed his best man speech before this, so everyone was surprised. I hoped that he wasn't going to do what I think he was, because I had already rejected the idea. I looked towards my husband, hoping he would stop his friend, but to my surprise he had run off and come back holding something. He was holding flowers and a placard that had the words "Will you marry me" on it. As Jacob's girlfriend walked in the middle, My biggest fear came true when I ran off because I just couldn't take it anymore. I shut myself in my room and began crying my eyes out. When my husband walked in the room, he began yelling at me, telling me to grow up. He accused me of ruining the special moment because I was an attention seeker and couldn't stand others being happy. It wasn't the proposal that angered me so much, but the fact that my own husband had completely disregarded my wishes. I had told him multiple times that I didn't want this, and yet he allowed this to happen anyway. I decided that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with someone who doesn't care about my opinion. I told him to get out and spent the night alone. The next day, I avoided everyone and went home with my parents, and began calling a divorce lawyer. My husband tried calling me, but he was saying the same thing, that I was acting childish and needed to just get over it. When I sent him the divorce papers though, he realized that I am serious and quickly changed his tone. He began apologizing for going against my wishes, and said he would never do that again. But the doubt had already made its way into my mind. I was no longer sure if I could spend the rest of my life with him, and by extension, Jacob. I told him that he needs to set his priorities. Because if even on his wedding day, he is prioritizing his friend over his wife, then I can't marry him. Jacob hasn't commented on the situation, except of course calling me sensitive and childish, so I am staying firm on my decision to divorce my husband.
My wife has never wanted kids, regrets having them, and tried to blindside me by attempting to give away our babies behind my back. My wife, 33F, and I, 35M, have been together since college and got married a little while after she graduated. When we first got together, she told me she didn't really like kids, and while I was a little disappointed, I didn't care too much about it. I didn't feel very strongly about it either way. We were very in love, and things were perfect for a good while. Her birth control failed 6 years ago, and I told her that I would support whatever choice she made. She scheduled to terminate but backed out the day before, and we became loving and enthusiastic parents. Later on down the road, she decided she wanted another child, and so we had our second daughter. They are 5 and 3 years old, and absolutely perfect. They are both very well behaved and ahead of the curve for kids their ages. Another thing worth mentioning is that my wife is a stay-at-home mom. My job is very demanding, and I am out of town for week-long stretches once a month, and then work from 9 to 6 the rest of the month. I've had this schedule since we were married, basically, and I make good money, in the low 6 figures, and we've never had any kind of financial struggles. For the past few months, I've known something was up with my wife. She is obviously the primary caretaker of our daughters, but recently she's been completely hands-off when I'm at home. I don't mind spending extra time with my daughters taking care of them, but it's more than that. She will completely ignore them while I'm around. If they ask her for anything at all, she tells them, "Go ask Daddy," and locks herself in our bedroom to get away from them. I've been asking her if she's alright, and she had been insisting everything was fine until last night. After we put the kids to bed, she came to me and sat me down at the table. She started talking about fun things we had done right after we got married, what a great adventure everything had been, just generally reminiscing. She was being sweet, funny, and loving, and my guard was down. She said, "Back before we had the girls, we could do anything we wanted. I wish we could go back to that." I asked her what she meant. After much prodding, she admitted that she regretted having kids. I said that there were times where I felt overwhelmed too, but that I would always love our daughters. She got quiet, mumbled something, and I asked her to say it again. She yelled, "I don't love them," and then started sobbing. I sat there, just shocked. She composed herself and then started talking again. She was saying how she had been looking into adoption agencies and foster care. She had already contacted one agency, and she was making plans to give away my children. I continued to listen, too dumbfounded to say a word, as she babbled on about how amazing it's going to be to have our lives back, how great our relationship will be when we don't have kids anymore. I didn't know what to do. I let her talk herself out, and when she went to bed, I went and got my babies, packed some things, and drove to my mother's house. I called in sick to work today and told them I'd probably be out the rest of the week. I have a ton of missed calls, voicemails, and texts from my wife, but I haven't looked at any of them. I've spent the day talking to my mom about things and keeping the girls occupied. My mom doesn't know what to do either. I'm thinking I have a couple of options: start calling lawyers or start calling mental health professionals, maybe both. I don't know if she's having some kind of psychotic delusion or if she's just that awful of a person. I really don't want to go back home to her now, ever. I'm thinking divorce is the best choice, but I can't take care of my kids on my own. Edit. She's not at home all the time with them. They go to pre-K for 6 hours a day 4 days a week. My mom takes them pretty much every other weekend. She gets a lot of time to herself, even though it could be more, and on nights when I'm home, she goes out with her friends often. Lately, when I'm home, she doesn't see the kids at all. It's still possible that she's overwhelmed, but she's not the isolated barefoot and pregnant, chained to the stove woman you're picturing here. She graduated with an art degree. When we first got married, She was working as a teacher, teaching English and art in a local high school. She hated it and quit when she was pregnant with our first. She has a studio in our house, basically an extra bedroom with all her art stuff in it that the kids aren't allowed in, and she paints when the kids are out of the house. She feels like her degree is useless but told me she wasn't interested in going back to school. We used to pay for a weekly maid service, but my wife decided she didn't want to spare the expense. I'm just looking for input right now. Honestly, I feel like her response to this situation was completely out of line and nearly unbelievable, and I'm not sure I want to continue a relationship with someone who considers giving away her kids before even asking for help. She has consistently denied that anything was wrong and apparently put up a front to make me think that she wasn't struggling. It's not like I forced her to have kids. She chose not to terminate, and she herself chose to have a second child. She was the one who approached me about it, and she was so happy when I said yes, let's do it. She never asked for any help. She didn't let on that things weren't perfect until the last few months when I repeatedly asked her if things were okay. She bottled up her feelings until she was ready to give up our kids and was making real plans about it behind my back. Everybody's acting like I'm the bad guy here for working long hours, but it's not that simple. Whatever direction things take, I absolutely will be hiring a nanny. Update 1. I second-guessed myself a little after the initial responses I received from my first post. I didn't expect anybody to side with my wife. I should have provided more information from the start, but I didn't realize all that stuff would be relevant. I thought that from the fact that she was trying to give away our kids without my knowledge, people would realize that the issue was with her. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect by any means, but I took a lot of unwarranted criticism. Anyway, after I elaborated on our situation a little more, I got a ton of helpful advice and support. I'm in the process of finding a live-in nanny now, and I appreciate everyone who suggested it. Yesterday, I contacted a lawyer for advice and then called my wife. One of my close friends lives a few houses down, so I explained the situation and had him on standby. I left my daughters with my mom and came back to the house to meet with her. She was absolutely furious. The first words out of her mouth were, "Where the F have you been, you piece of crap?" When I got to the house, she berated me for leaving without saying a word to her or answering the phone. She accused me of cheating on her, called me a pig and a prick, and ranted for a good 15 minutes straight. She didn't say a word about the kids, didn't ask me where they were, or if I had taken them. It's like she had forgotten they existed. I cut her off, told her where I had been, and that I had taken the girls to my mother's house. She seemed caught off guard. She asked me why. I explained to her that the way she had talked about adopting them out was not acceptable, and since she didn't care about them, I didn't think they were safe around her. She blinked and said, word for word, "Wait, you want to keep them? Don't you love me?" I lost it. I'm not proud of it, but I couldn't hold it together. It devolved into a screaming fight with me telling her she was insane, and her yelling that I didn't love her. I went through the house and packed up all my valuables and personal documents, with her screaming her head off at me the entire time. My friend came in to try and calm her down, but she threw a plate at him and told him to get the F out. At this point, I called the cops. She dug herself deeper by punching one of the cops and then biting the other once she was cuffed. I am now 100% certain that she's having some kind of psychotic break. She will be evaluated soon, but either way, I'm going through with the divorce. I doubt I'll have any trouble getting full custody, especially with that call to the adoption agency on her phone records. After my wife was arrested, I cleaned up the house and brought my daughters back home. They haven't asked where mommy is yet, but I don't know what to tell them when they do. I'm looking into taking a lower responsibility role at work, at least to where I'm not gone for an entire week at a time. I will still be heavily reliant on a nanny, but I can't stand the thought of my daughters not having a parent there to put them to bed every night. Update 2. It's been a good while since my last update, but things are progressing, so I figured I'd post something. My wife has been properly diagnosed with some mental issues. She is undergoing extensive therapy and trying to work out her legal issues as well. I'm still not sure what direction that is going to take. My wife's parents have been helping her with legal arrangements as she refuses help from me and didn't even want to use my insurance to help with her medical bills. She ended up having to anyway, and I've been sending her parents money to help with paying what's left over. We mutually decided to go ahead with the divorce. She didn't want custody of our daughters or even visitation. I practically begged her to at least come to their birthdays and holidays, but she said no. I'm hoping that it's a symptom of her illness and that once she progresses through her treatment enough, she will change her mind, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I found a wonderful au pair who is fantastic with my daughters. According to her, they're very self-sufficient and don't need much help with keeping themselves entertained or anything really. I suspect my wife had been ignoring the girls even when I wasn't around. They've been constantly asking me when mommy is coming back, and I don't know what to tell them. I have to try really hard not to cry in front of them because I don't want them to worry about me. We've been going to family therapy together but still haven't found a way to explain that mommy might never come back, or she may show back up and not be nice, or she may show back up and be her old self again. My friend, the one she threw a plate at, and his wife and kids have been hanging out at my place a lot to keep us all company. He's been a godsend throughout this entire experience. He decided not to press charges against my wife for the plate thing. This will probably be my last update. The feedback I've gotten from you guys has really helped to ground me during these events, even just getting validation that I'm not crazy helped. Thanks for everything, everyone. I received an anonymous tip telling me my wife was with the guy she told me not to worry about. My wife, let's call her Sam, 36F, and I, 40M, have been together for 5 years and got married last year. We definitely have our ups and downs in our relationship, but we're generally happy. On Friday, she went out with people from her work for Christmas drinks and arrived home around midnight, absolutely hammered. She just said she'd had a good time and went straight to bed. Yesterday, I got a message on Instagram from an anonymous account claiming to be one of her colleagues, saying she had been flirting all night with one of the guys from the office, 44M, and they had left together at about 9 to walk to the train station. The colleague had a couple more drinks and then went to the station herself. She says she saw my wife walking hand in hand with the guy through the station at about 10:45, so nearly 2 hours later they were still together, and they didn't see her. Last night, I showed her the message and asked her for an explanation. She claimed she was so drunk that she doesn't remember anything that happened after about 8 p.m. I asked if she went somewhere with the guy after they left the group, and she checked the location history on her phone, which confirmed that they had gone to a bar near the station for about an hour, and then they later arrived at the station at 10:40. She gave me her phone and insisted I check it, and there were no suspicious messages or anything. As far as I could tell, she doesn't have the guy's number in her phone, and they're not following each other on Instagram or friends on Facebook. I asked if she was flirting with him, and she admitted that she was talking mostly to him all night. She explained that it's because he's the only person in her office she has anything in common with, and they're just friends. She insisted it wasn't flirting. She's mentioned this guy to me before and said how much they have in common. I asked if they were holding hands, and she said she doesn't remember, but she doesn't think so. She claims to know who sent me the message and says it's a woman in the office who hates her, although she doesn't know why. Today, she's been in a terrible mood, and we've not really spoken. So that's where we are, and I'm not sure what to do. Is this as big a red flag as it seems to be? Update 1. Sam came home from work on Monday and casually said that she had spoken with a coworker, Tom, and he had confirmed that they hadn't held hands. They had just been walking arm in arm because she was drunk and wearing heels. I asked why her colleague, Helen, would make an Instagram account, track me down, and message me, saying they held hands if it wasn't true. She said Helen is basically in love with Tom and made a pass at him just after his divorce, but he rejected her. I asked why Helen would feel threatened by her, and she said it's because she and Tom are friends, and Helen is a crazy, jealous person, as evidenced by the Instagram message. I asked why she went for a drink with just Tom, and she said that according to Tom, they walked past this bar with an amazing band playing, so they stopped in for a drink. Her only regret was doing too many shots too early and getting wasted. The next day, she went shopping after work and came home with a new dress. I asked what the occasion was, and she said her work Christmas party. Last week was just drinks with people from her office, and the company Christmas party is on Friday. Apparently, she had mentioned this, but I can't recall. I hardly slept that night. The next day, I decided to reply to the Instagram message to get some more info. I asked, "Do you think anything's going on with them?" Helen, I assume, quickly replied with a long message, saying that they flirt at work, and everyone's noticed. Apparently, Sam was going to be let go, but Tom put in a good word, so she kept her job. Tom protects her in the office and will constantly defend her. She also said that Sam complains about me to the entire office, and it's clear we don't have a happy marriage. I asked if she was going to the Christmas party, and she said she was. She mentioned that she'd update me if anything happened. Sam finished work early on Friday, so she had time to get ready. She looked amazing, and I really didn't want her to go, but I felt like I couldn't say anything. I got an Instagram message around midnight, saying that Sam and Tom hadn't interacted at the party, but people from the office had decided to leave and go to a different bar. They all left just before 11 and were at the new bar by 10 past, but Sam and Tom turned up just before midnight. Sam arrived home at about 2 a.m., not quite as drunk as last time, and went straight to sleep. I pretended to be fast asleep, and then later I looked at the location history on her phone. After leaving the venue, she had taken a 3-mile detour to a residential street, stayed for half an hour, and then gone to the bar. I sent the address to Helen. She didn't reply until the next morning when she said it was Tom's house. When Sam woke up, I just asked her straight out if she cheated on me with Tom last night. She angrily denied it. I told her that I knew she'd been to Tom's house. She accused me of spying on her, called me controlling, and said she was going to stay with her sister. I demanded an explanation, and she said she went to his house so they could share a joint before heading to the bar. Then she stormed out. She wouldn't reply to my messages or answer my calls all day Sunday. I called her sister, who said she hadn't seen her, but she texted me later that she'd spoken to Sam and said she was okay. Sam came home yesterday morning, and I asked where she'd been. She just said she couldn't do this anymore and wants a divorce. She went to start packing some clothes while I tried to get her to talk to me. I asked if she was leaving me for Tom. She once again denied anything inappropriate had happened between them, but said my jealousy was the final straw. It's clear I don't trust her, I'm controlling, I take her for granted, and that she's deeply unhappy and has been for a while. So she's gone now. It looks like I'll be spending my first Christmas alone. I have no idea if she was telling the truth or if it was an affair. Weirdly, I'm not feeling too bad today, so maybe this is for the best. Update 2. Once she was gone, Sam blocked me on all her social media and refused to return my messages or answer my calls. I ended up traveling to the other side of the country to spend Christmas with my parents. On Christmas Eve, Sam came home and took more of her stuff. I watched her on our security cameras, and I tried phoning her, but she ignored my calls. Christmas wasn't great, and my parents were both shocked and in denial about what had happened. They had no idea we were having issues and insisted Sam would come to her senses and come home. Eventually, I just said she'd met someone else, and I returned home on the 27th. I'd been getting sporadic updates from Sam's sister, just letting me know she's alright but without any details. Before all this happened, we'd made plans to spend New Year's Eve at Sam's favorite bar in the city. I went on my own, but she didn't show up. On Tuesday night, I received an Instagram message from Helen saying that Sam and Tom had arrived at work together in Tom's car. I didn't bother replying. On Wednesday night, she sent another message saying Sam was poisoning the office against her and that Tom was pushing upper management to transfer her to another office or get rid of her. She begged me to do something. I texted Sam and said we needed to talk, but she didn't reply. So the next day, I called her work switchboard, gave a fake name, and got put through. I could tell she wasn't happy to hear my voice, but she agreed to meet up after work at a local pub and talk. I got there early, and she arrived 25 minutes late. She apologized for ignoring my calls and said she still cares about me and wants to end things on good terms. I said, just tell me the truth. She promised that she wasn't having an affair with Tom and they were just friends. She admitted that they talk a lot in the office, but insisted it wasn't an emotional affair. She understands why I was suspicious after the Instagram message, but said I should have accepted her denial and trusted her. She has a lot of male friends, but she felt like she couldn't hang out with them because I'd get jealous. I pointed out that I've never told her not to hang out with anyone, but she said I'd be moody whenever she'd hang out with a guy friend. She feels like we only got married to try to fix a relationship that was already broken. Our conversations have devolved into small talk, and we've drifted apart. I said I'd heard that she and Tom arrived at work together. Sam said she went to Tom's after I accused her of cheating and knew it was over between us. They spent the weekend together and agreed that they'd make a better couple than we did. She needed me to know that nothing happened between them until after she'd told me she wanted a divorce, and now they were together. She wanted me to hear it from her first before I saw it on social media. Tom was waiting outside for her in the car. All I could do was stand up and walk out. Sam texted me, saying she knew I was upset but not to do anything stupid. I blocked her number. I'm not gonna lie, it was a rough night. The next day, I was just numb and didn't really do much. Over the weekend, I dug out our marriage certificate so I can start divorce proceedings. I've no idea what to say to Helen, so I haven't replied. I think the plan now is to try and find a new job closer to my hometown. I moved across the country to live with Sam, and I've never really felt settled here. I also don't want to run into her and Tom around town, and luckily, we rent. This will probably be my last update unless something miraculous happens, so thanks for reading. My adultery ruined my life. I hate myself for it. I married my wife Annie 13 years ago. We dated for 3 years and tied the knot. Our marriage was great. We were really happy. Suddenly she becomes pregnant. I know it is our fault because we didn't use protection every time. We decided to keep the baby and our son was born. I thought our family was complete, but things drastically changed. My wife was always busy with our son. She used to be this fit girl who was always radiant, but she just looked like a zombie to me. She didn't care about how she looked while she was in public. I started to feel resentment towards her. Before I did anything stupid, I talked to her and gave her an ultimatum that if she doesn't go back to her normal shape, I would leave her. She started crying and saying that she is always exhausted and doesn't have time. I told her I would help her as much as I can, but looking back now, I did the bare minimum. The trouble came when she was again pregnant after 5 years. All the hard work she has done was down the drain. She gained a lot of weight. I avoided her. Just looking at her made me sick. I was either at the gym or at the bar. I was looking for excuses to not come home. That's when I met a girl at my gym. She was attractive and had a nice body. She was also younger than I was. We started talking. I felt alive again. I felt like there was someone here in front of me who appreciates me a lot. A few days later, I went to her house and we slept together. It was like a drug to me. I didn't realize that I was becoming more and more distant with my family. So, just like every cheater, I got caught. My wife found out that I was sleeping with someone else. She broke down in tears right in front of me. She kept repeating, "How could you do this to me? You broke our family." At that time, I did something bad. I am still ashamed of it. I yelled at her and called her a hag. I told her if she looked after herself I wouldn't have cheated, that it is all her fault. My wife started laughing. It confused me. She said if I helped her, she might have had the time. I was never home and outside sleeping with some random girl. She told me she wanted a divorce right there. I was really hateful towards her and said, "Fine, you can, but you really think any man would ever want you with your baggage?" I could see it broke her and crushed her. I wanted that at that time. The divorce was settled. She only wanted the house. We shared custody of the kids. The divorce felt a relief. I could be with my girlfriend whenever I wanted. But that is when I saw the changes. Whenever I was home, the house was not clean. There would be dishes in the sink for days. I remember looking at them and calling Annie, but Annie didn't live in my house. It became tougher when it was my weekend to have the kids. I realized I knew nothing about my kids. My son was a picky eater. My daughter was still very little. She would cry a lot. It was exhausting. No matter how much I try, my son would complain about everything and tell me that's not how his mother did it. That wasn't the end of the problems. Things with my girlfriend became bland way too soon. My wife would always have a home-cooked meal ready for me. But my girlfriend is just happy to have leftovers or frozen pizza for all she cares. I was sick of it. Intimate life was also very boring. My ex-wife was really great at it. I never had any bad experiences with her. But my girlfriend lacked imagination. Also, she has a really one-dimensional personality. My son really picked on things. He started resenting me. He was rude towards my girlfriend. My girlfriend would abuse him by calling him a brat. The last straw was when my son yelled at me and said that he hated me and my girlfriend would never be his mommy. It struck me like thunder. Things ended with her right there. On the other hand, Annie started to change a lot. She lost a lot of weight. She looked relaxed and like her old self. I once complimented her that she looked good. "I only got a cold, thank you back." I got to know from a mutual friend of ours that she would sometimes say that the divorce made her realize she deserved better. And things got better because she had some time for herself. Before that, she had to clean up my mess, and now there is hardly any mess left. I was hit with another realization that I treated her badly. I never helped her when she needed my help the most. Annie understood me. She was kind and passionate. She was just going through a rough phase and I kicked her to the curb. I went into depression. I asked Annie if she could give me a chance. She said no. I don't blame her. For my son, I got to know she started dating an old friend of hers. My son loves him. My daughter calls him Dada. I tried my best for my daughter to call me that, but she didn't. I met them together at a business convention. That man had his arm around my Annie and was showing her off. I was angry. I felt this rage inside me. Later that night, I drank a lot and started to call Annie. I spewed nonsense that her new boy toy is nothing but a weak man that is dating a pathetic single mom like her. I know this because the next day she came to my house along with my parents. My parents ripped me apart and said to stay the hell away from Annie. I lost my kids. My wife and I already lost my parents after the divorce. I never felt so alone. I wake on my bed empty. Annie would always cuddle me early in the morning. I missed her warmth. Things between my son didn't improve. He probably knows why me and his mother aren't together. Few months ago, Annie dropped a bomb. She said that she was pregnant. That was the moment I knew I lost her forever. From that moment, whenever I went to her house to get my kids, I would see how her boyfriend basically worships her and takes care of her needs. If I wasn't so stupid or arrogant and helped her, cherished her, we would still be a happy family. I guess this is my punishment. I have to see another man play family with my Annie and kids. Am I the a-hole for leaving my mom after she kept calling me her practice kid? My parents had me young and on accident. My childhood was nothing but money troubles and listening to my parents scream at each other. Things only got better when my mom left my dad and started seeing my stepdad. He brought financial stability and is more of a father to me than my bio dad ever was. They have a daughter together, my sister Melody. I'm not blind. I know they shower her with attention and buy her everything they can because I had nothing when I was her age. When I was younger, it frustrated me to see her loved in a way I never was, but now I know that my mom did her best with the experience and resources she had. It's just bad luck that it worked out the way it did. With that context out of the way, Melody recently turned 4 and my parents went all out. They invited not only all the family in the area, but also some of Melody's friends from daycare and their parents. Once my mom and the other moms had a few drinks each, they started gossiping. The conversation, which I was not part of but was listening to because I was bored watching the kids, turned to sharing stories about their kids. My mom, instead of sharing cute stories about Melody, decided to tell a group of random moms about the time I tried to make my parents stop fighting by collecting change lying around the house and giving it to them. I was 7. She was laughing the whole time and ended the story with, "Ah, the things you learn with the oldest, practice kids, am I right?" My husband and I never fight in front of Melody. I think that's why she's so much easier than. That story is a painful memory for me, so I was hurt that she thought it was so hilarious, but I didn't say anything and tried to brush it off. The moms started talking about kindergarten because a few of them have kids who will be starting in the fall. My mom, who by then was sh-faced, decided that it would be a great idea to share the story of how she carried the school into letting me do gym class in my winter boots because that was the one pair of shoes I had. Again, she told the whole story with a grin on her face and laughing. The last thing she said made almost blow up. Thank goodness Melody can have all the shoes she wants, though with how much poop my son pulled at that age, maybe it was best I didn't waste money on the practice kid. I texted my mom, "I'm glad you find how poor and miserable we were, so funny." But it really upsets me how you clearly think of me as practice for Mel. I'm going so someone should watch the kids. I then left without talking to anyone. When I got home I checked my texts and found a rant from her, saying that they were her stories and she could feel any way she wanted. She called me sensitive for not taking a joke and suggested I get a therapist. I already have one and she knows that because I was jealous of a 4 years old. She said I was rude for leaving. So, the first thing I did was talk to my stepdad. Contrary to some of y'all's assumptions, I don't live at my parents' house, so I asked him over to breakfast to talk on a day my mom had work but I had off. He knows I usually plan around my mom's work schedule, so I think he knew it was serious beforehand. We sat down over eggs and I told him what had happened. He'd been doing something else at the time, and was absolutely shocked. Apparently, my mom had told him a twisted version of events. According to him, she'd said that I sent her an angry text because of a few harmless jabs and that she was only kidding and didn't mean any harm. She also had conspicuously left out her Dr. N can text to me. His reaction to the actual content of her jokes can only be described as a deep sadness and frustration. He offered me true support and affirmation, something that I could never picture my mom doing in my a million years. My mom can be nice, but she's not great at anything deeper than platitudes. What did I ever do to deserve him? He was also completely blindsided by the fact that there was drinks at a kid's party. Apparently, he had left the planning to her and had no idea. I told him that I want to go very low contact with my mom for a bit, and asked for his help to see him and Melody without having to deal with her. He said that he understood, and agreed to have me over when she's not around. He told me he would get my mom help with her emotions and her drinking problem, and I told him that she probably wouldn't cooperate and promised to help him get her the help she needs. In what ways I can. A half hour after my stepdad left, I texted my mom the following: Hey Ma, I've mulled over what happened at Mel's party and I've come to the realization that our relationship is not healthy. You put me down for things that weren't my fault and laugh at how you and my bio dad screwed my childhood up. It hurts to hear you speak about me like that, and I don't think you understand exactly how much. I've also come to the understanding that you serving heavy drinks at a 4-year-old's birthday party without even telling dad isn't normal. This isn't a one-time thing. You start drinking at 8 a.m. and don't stop until bed. You have 2 problems, and until you get some serious help with both of them, I would like very little contact with you. Please don't contact me outside of an emergency. I then blocked her from texting me. No, this isn't as dramatic of an update as y'all were hoping for, but I hope that someone can take something from it. I know it's only been a few days, but I have no regrets. Maybe going cold turkey offer was what I needed.
Am I the a-hole for wearing a bikini on vacation despite my insecure boyfriend? As much as I feel like I made the right choice, I'm still interested in seeing how other people would have reacted in this sort of disagreement. Honestly, I've learned a lot and I won't tolerate bullshit like this again in any of my future relationships. For context, I have a full-time remote accounting job, but I also do brand deals and technically work as an Instagram model on the side. I had been posting selfies for a while, but back in 2019, my profile blew up for whatever reason. After I had gained a couple 10,000 followers, I started getting brand deals, and even though it's not something I ever saw myself doing, the money was easy, and since then I have been a part-time Insta model. Of course, my DMs and comments are full of thirsty creeps, but I have met a lot of other great creators after entering the influencing space. Still, even though I may look picture perfect on Instagram, deep down I'm still the introverted math nerd I've always been. Anyway, I met my boyfriend one night out when I was visiting friends in LA, and after I flew home we kept talking. At first, he was a very polite, decent guy, and he asked me lots of great questions about myself and always kept our conversations lively. He flew me out to visit him a few times, and we always had fun together. It wasn't until after he asked me to be his girlfriend did he start revealing his red flags. When we were first talking, he would constantly compliment me and tell me how I looked on my profile. But it's like a switch flipped after we started dating, and he was suddenly very rude and controlling when it came to how I dress and what I posted. Anyways, he pissed me off one day after he got mad at me for posting a full body pic, but after I forgave him for acting like an A, he made it up to me by booking us a weekend vacation. I was excited, and I had a long week and was looking forward to lounging on the beach. I also wanted to take a break from social media, so I was barely on my phone the entire trip. The morning of the first day was great. We had a great breakfast together and he had rented us a beautiful, expensive hotel. The issue started when we decided to go down to the hotel pool before bed, and I took out my swimsuit. When he saw it, his face twisted and he became upset. He took the bikini out of my hand and asked why I needed to wear something so revealing. I told him I was more comfortable in bikinis, and that this was my favorite swimsuit. He started rummaging through my suitcase and kept asking if I had any one piece. I got annoyed at him and said screw it, I'm just gonna shower and head to bed. He dropped the issue, but I was only getting more annoyed since he was bring his insecure bullshit on vacation. The very next day was the same story. We had a great time in the daytime, but in the evening I wanted to go to the pool and things started to go downhill. My boyfriend said I should just relax again, and that the pool was probably dirty anyway. We could see it from our window, it looked fine, and I told him to go ahead and I'd meet him down there after I showered. He seemed apprehensive but went down to the pool anyway. When I went to put on my swimsuit after my shower, I realized it wasn't in my bag. In fact, it was nowhere to be found. I tore up the hotel room and eventually found it under a bunch of dirty food wrappers at the bottom of the trash can. It was obvious my boyfriend had tried to throw it away since he didn't want me wearing it. Even though I was dirty from the food wrappers, I put it on and marched down to the pool, then plopped myself right next to him. I gave him a dirty look and asked him why he thought he could control my body enough to go as far as to steal and throw away my stuff. He started stuttering out an apology, but I raised my hand and told him that he had successfully driven me away with his constant insecurity when it came to my body. I told him I wasn't happy with how he was been treating me and that I deserved more respect. I finally told him I had booked my own room before I came down, and I would be booking my own flight home too. His face fell as he realized what I was doing, and I was thankful we were in a public place since he started to get angry next. He started getting in my face and whispering angrily, calling me a SLT, and saying that I needed to learn how to listen to him. I told him I didn't have to do a damn thing for him, and before he could get another word in I got up and left the pool area to go buy my flight. I don't care that I basically abandoned him in another country. He's a big boy, and if he can harass me about my clothes, he can enjoy the rest of his trip alone. I let my boyfriend's ex rent my house at an incredibly low price because of their 5 kids, but she's ungrateful, so now I want to send them to the streets. My boyfriend, 42M, and I, 36F, have been together for 7 years. We have both been married and divorced before, and we both prefer to be financially independent of each other, so we keep things fairly separate. What's mine is mine, and what's his is his. I'm child-free, have worked my way up in my field, and am comfortable financially. My boyfriend, on the other hand, doesn't earn as much as I do, and he pays a significant amount of child support and contributes to all of his 5 kids' after-school activities, as he should. Our current living arrangement is that I pay all our household bills, loans, and food, while he looks after his kids and contributes what he can to our household. 5 years ago, I bought a home for us, going so far as to purchase a home that would suit his kids to make them feel comfortable when they came over and stayed with us. This caused a lot of drama, as his ex felt that I was trying to buy the children, and in her words, she only got the house to rub in how much better she thinks she is. I have always kept my distance from his ex. It was a messy divorce for them, which she blamed on me, even though I didn't meet my partner until they had been separated for nearly a year. She has a history of domestic violence towards him, and my presence only makes it worse. 18 months ago, I got a great job opportunity, which would mean we needed to relocate 12 hours away from our current home. After discussions between my boyfriend and me, and my boyfriend and his ex, we agreed that we would make the move for my job. We decided to rent my house to his ex at an incredibly discounted rate with the agreement that this arrangement would last for 2 years. Recently, my work circumstances have changed, and we have relocated back to our hometown. My boyfriend and I have found a small rental in the meantime. However, since coming home, his ex has become more aggressive, particularly towards me. She has told my partner that the children have always hated me and were only nice because of him, but they don't ever want to see me again. She has accused me of trying to buy the kids' love, making her look like a bad mother, and essentially being the root of all evil. All of that is whatever to me. I do love the kids in my own way. However, I would hate to make them choose or feel uncomfortable by being around me. So, we are making sure that my boyfriend spends as much time as possible with the kids, attends any sports or school events without me, and when I'm away for work, they come to our house. I've suggested therapy or counseling, but the ex won't hear it, making it sound like I'm calling her a bad mother for suggesting it. The 2 years are ending, and I want my house back. The issue, I guess if you can call it an issue, is that the ex is saying that if I'm fortunate enough to pay for a rental and to pay a mortgage now, I should let her and the kids stay in the house. Since the kids now hate me, it would be a waste of space for just my boyfriend and me. This situation is also leading to the kids telling my partner that they hate me even more for kicking them and their mother out of their home. My boyfriend is very torn on the matter, he just wants his kids to be safe and happy. Relevant comment. What are you getting out of this relationship really? Because this isn't going to end, it will just get worse. Why are you financially supporting this guy who won't stand up for you? You claim he's working hard for both you and the kids, but it doesn't seem that way. He has been letting his ex call all the shots in your relationship. Who are you in a relationship with, him or his ex? You really don't need any of this. Once they're gone from your life, you'll feel a lot better. You're fighting a losing battle with your boyfriend never standing up for himself and calling out his ex for parental alienation and other things going on. Don't you deserve better than this? You earn a ton of money, so enjoy your life, and stop worrying about kids who will continue to hate you. Trust me, this is only going to get worse. She's teaching them to be entitled to things that aren't theirs yet treating the person they owe like crap. Therapy won't help when their mom is whispering in their ears. They'll demand your money for college, weddings, down payments for their homes, baby-related stuff like baby showers, baby products, fertility treatments, and whatever else, all while treating you like crap every step of the way, and your boyfriend will cave under every demand, with the ex egging it all on. Kick them all out and be free of them all. I want a loving and healthy relationship. As mentioned above, there are lots of complexities in a relationship that can't fit into a post, but I can safely say that I have a rich and fulfilling relationship. Everything written above may come off as I finance everything, which isn't wrong, but I can, and that's a choice I have made. I have only one living family member and no children, so I am happy to help out my partner. I agree with some of the comments here that it was a terrible idea to rent to her in the first place, and I was truly naive thinking it would be appreciated by her. Honestly, if I could kick myself, I absolutely would. After some deep discussions and thought, we will be asking her to leave the house. We have a lease and an agent in place, so they will handle that side of it, and my boyfriend understands the fallout. I just feel guilt towards the children. None of this is their fault. Update 1. I've had some messages for an update on my original post, and ultimately, I wasn't the jerk, but I was definitely the moron. After reading a lot of comments on my original post, I decided that while, yes, I wanted my house back, I also didn't really love the idea of living in the house the nasty woman had lived in for longer than I. It didn't feel like my home anymore, and I really wanted my home to feel like my home, so I decided to sell. I spoke with my boyfriend, and he was really non-committal on the situation but said it was my decision. I gave the ex the option to stay in the home, and I would sell it as an investment property with a tenant, or she could move out. She went with going absolutely bat-crap crazy and decided to out hers and my boyfriend's reignited emotional love affair. As it turns out, since my boyfriend and I have returned to our hometown, and I still have to leave town frequently for work, they had gotten close again. The ex sent me a mountain load of screenshots of steamy messages and pictures between the two of them, along with long-winded messages of them whinging about me, suggesting that maybe I would just let them have the house if me and my boyfriend separated since I wouldn't need all that space. I obviously confronted my boyfriend, and he looked incredibly panicked, but admitted it was all true. He said that it was more of an emotional relationship and had not turned physical. He was very sorry, embarrassed, and explained that he was leaning on her for comfort because I was away a lot. He also missed his kids, and he felt emasculated by me a lot of the time. There are plenty of other reasons and excuses not even worth mentioning, and yes, it was all about the money. The main theme of the messages boiled down to money, because I earned more and had more disposable income, also didn't have 5 kids, but whose fault is that? And what they both failed to see is that I work away 3 weeks a month for 12 hours a day to earn said money. Needless to say, I am now single. I have kicked him and her out and placed the house on the market for sale. I have just put an offer on a cute little townhouse on the beach, and I've added back the dating apps tonight after a few wines, and I thought it was a good time to let Reddit know that most of you were right on my original post. Life isn't great, but I'm sure it'll be again one day. Edit. I've been trying really hard to stay as oblivious as possible to their situation. Not really for them, but for the kids. Despite what happened between me and their parents, I was a big part of their lives for years, and I do worry that they are now in an unsafe or unstable living situation due to their parents' stupidity and selfishness, so that part hurts to dwell on. Unfortunately, we live in a small town, so I do hear and see things. I was at the local market during the week and recognized one of the kids from a distance and hid. Sure enough, my ex was with her, so my assumption is they are together. It didn't really hurt to see them. It was like watching two people be so stupid but knowing they are too stupid to see it. My mom slept with the love of my life. I had no choice but to ruin her life. My parents have been married for 43 years. I have 6 siblings. I have been with my husband since we were 15. I got pregnant at 17 and we moved in with my parents. I gave birth to my now 22-year-old daughter. We got married at 18 shortly after. My dad's father passed shortly after our wedding and left his ranch-style house to my father. My grandparents built a house next door to my parents when they retired. My parents decided to let us live in this house and told us this would be my inheritance. My husband and I had no issues with this. We went on to have 3 children, and I'm currently 7 months pregnant with my last child, a boy, due in April. I thought I had a good marriage. We were intimate more than twice a week, we went on date nights, we bought each other gifts, and we didn't fight. My entire world was shattered on New Year's Eve when I returned early from a girls' trip I had taken with some friends. I walked into my bedroom to find my mom having intimacy with my husband. My mother screamed at me to get out of their bedroom, which really shook me up even more. Unfortunately, my oldest daughter was also home in her bedroom across the house getting ready for a party. She ran out and witnessed my all but a bedsheet naked mother run out of our house next door to her house and slam the door. My daughter was devastated and went to my sister's house. I asked her not to say anything until I first talked to my husband. I asked him for the truth. He told me that my mom seduced him when we were 18 and living in their house. They'd been having unprotected intimacy at least once a month for longer than we were married. I ran the math and was horrified because the timeline meant my twin brothers and youngest brother could be my husband's. I immediately called my dad and told him to come to my house without my mom. I made my husband confess and my dad was devastated. He and my mom were high school sweethearts too. Needless to say, we could hear my mother screaming from her house when he confronted her. I then told my older sister and she and I decided to have her throw a party for the whole extended family, and we invited my ex's family as well. At the party, I had my eldest daughter take all the kids to our basement and put on a movie, leaving only the adult children and siblings, and I told them exactly what they'd been doing. Most of the family is on my side, except my 3 youngest siblings, and my ex's entire family. They all say I'm a jerk for dropping this publicly. Word got out and my mom's best friend, who is in leadership at my mom's church, called me to verify. My mom has since been let go as the children's pastor there, and she claims I've essentially ruined her reputation and life. My dad kicked her out and she's now living with my eldest sister, and lastly, my dad insisted on a DNA test for the 3 youngest boys before he'd consider anything to do with their marriage. The twins are my husband's bio children. I've since kicked him out and he's living with his parents. My father and I are discussing me moving into his much larger house and him selling my grandfather's house and him giving me the money to buy a new house somewhere else to get rid of the memories. My husband is appalled and furious that I proved he actually is about to have 7 kids, instead of 5, and that I'm going to be taking half his business away from him. My husband started his own HVAC company a few years back, and for the first 5 years, I helped him get it set up, ran the office completely, and took time away from my teaching career to help him get this established. In my state, all marital assets, including businesses, are split 50-50. Since the house was still in my father's name, my husband would get no money from the sale, and neither would my mother, since inherited assets are not subject to be split in divorces. My mother is also likely to not get any alimony, as our state is not a no-fault divorce state. I'm now over a month removed, still extremely bitter and angry at my mother, especially at her hypocrisy of calling me to the streets and shaming my family, when she's done much worse. I also despise my ex with everything within me now, as he was sleeping with both my mom and me, in some instances coming to our bed minutes later. He got my mother pregnant less than a week after getting me pregnant, and while I thought it was so cute and fun that I shared a pregnancy experience with my mom, she was carrying my children's half-siblings. He has broken all trust I had in men and being faithful. I have already procured a good lawyer from the firm that helped us in financial matters for both me and my dad is helping pay for it. My twin brothers, one of my sisters, and my entire ex's family have gone no contact with me and my minor children, and my children have essentially lost all of their grandparents but my dad, 2 uncles, and an aunt on my side, and my husband's 3 brothers, due to this mess. I've also developed ulcers and digestive issues because of this, so I'm visiting the doctor soon, and I've been in therapy since the first week of January. I've offered this for my 2 adult children if they need family therapy with all of us, but they're doing individual therapy right now. My 14-year-old knows that we're getting divorced and why, and she's so angry at her dad that I struggle sending her to his house on the weekends. I feel like she's old enough to make a decision on that, but I don't want to damage her relationship with her dad. I've told all my kids it's okay to love their dad, even if he hurt me, but the oldest 2 have cut him off 100%. I won't tell my youngest 2 until they're teens why we got divorced, and everyone else has agreed to not spill anything until they're old enough to understand. As for how I had no idea this affair was ongoing, my husband confirmed to me that they would sleep together at my mom's office at church, in their cars, at a motel, and when we built the business, they started having it routinely in his office, once I went back to teaching. They also had it in our houses too when my father would go away on business trips or I'd be out of town. It was a pure coincidence that I came home a day early from a trip because I was uncomfortable from being nearly 7 months pregnant and just wanted my own bed, for me to find out. Knowing they'd be carrying on this full-blown affair if I hadn't caught them is what I'm still upset about. The fact that the grandmother and father of my children cared so little about destroying our families is what I can't get past. What's hardest for me is that my own mother would do this to me and would continue to do this for years and not caring when it all blew up in her face that she would be destroying her entire family.
My dirtbag dad cheated on my mom when she had cancer and married her best friend, so I cut him off from my life. But now he's back and wants to reconnect. When I was 15 years old, my mom was diagnosed with cancer and had just 2 more years to live. It was a really tough time for our family, but I thought that I could get through it as long as I had my dad with me. However, as my mom's condition worsened and she got hospitalized, her relationship with my dad collapsed. Every time they met, they ended up fighting about something or the other. But at the end of the day, they still loved each other, right? Apparently not, because just 6 months after the discovery, my dad was already cheating on her. I found out because I was looking through the footage of our front door camera for my neighbor's stolen bike. I was so angry that I immediately barged into my dad's room and began yelling at him. He apologized, and begged me to not tell my mom. He said that it would break her heart and that we should let her pass in peace. Little did I know, I should have never listened to him. But his argument worked on the 15-year-old me and I kept his secret hidden. You would think that after being caught, he would stop. However, he just kept on doing it over and over again, with multiple women. He also didn't even bother hiding it properly, so my mom's sister ended up finding out. Sadly, she was given the same argument and also fell for the trap. When there were just 2 months left for my mom to live, my dad did the unthinkable. He cheated on her again, only this time, he did it with her best friend whom she had known since childhood. By this point, I was seething with anger and wanted to rip his head off. But my mom was just spending most of her time sleeping, and so I didn't want to pile stress onto her mind. I kept visiting her and hoping that after her passing, my dad would realize his mistake and quit whatever he thought he was doing. Oh, how wrong I was. At my mom's funeral, her best friend and my dad were literally linking their arms together. They had no tact and no respect for my mom. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to spend another second under the same roof as that man. As soon as I got home, I started packing my bags and prepared to go over to my grandparents' house. But my dad approached me and said he had something to say. He said that he was planning on marrying, you guessed it, my mom's best friend and needed my blessing. I couldn't believe he was saying this just hours after we buried his wife. I saw red, and grabbed a lamp from near where I was sitting. I swung at him and hit his head, drawing blood from his ear. I wanted to hit him more, but I just grabbed my bags and left after saying, "You are the most pathetic man to have ever lived. I knew it was the wrong parent who got cancer, it should have been you from the start." Thankfully, my grandparents were more than willing to let me live with them after I told them what my dad had done. He tried several times to call me and get me to go back to his house, but I always refused. Then I heard that he started drinking a lot and went into a downward spiral. He got fired from his job and nearly lost his house because he couldn't pay the mortgage. This continued until I turned 18 and went off to college. I was finally starting to enjoy life again with new friends, but that man wasn't yet done ruining my life. I received news that he had indeed married my mom's best friend, and she was apparently pregnant. I was angry and disappointed, but by now I didn't even consider him my dad anymore, so I wasn't bothered that much. However, I received a call yesterday that is making me question myself. It was from my granddad's number, so I picked up, but my dad was on the other end. He started talking about how I was right to blame him and be angry with him, but my soon-to-be-born sister was innocent and deserved to know her brother. I cut the call in a hurry because honestly, I don't know what to do. I want to rush over there and punch him in the face for even having the audacity to suggest this.
My husband is seriously prioritizing his girlfriend over me, and it's ruining our marriage. A year ago, my husband Marcus, 35M, and I, 36F, came to a mutual agreement about opening up our marriage. The spark was mostly gone, and we've toyed with the idea of open relationships/polyamory before. Once we had more in-depth conversations about it and put rules in place, I began downloading dating apps and reaching out to people who had expressed interest in me previously. Our rules were full transparency about the people we were seeing, getting tested every 2 months, not bringing partners home or allowing them to stay the night, keeping close friends off limits unless fully discussed with each other, and ensuring that our kids wouldn't interact with any of the people we were seeing. I was going for quick hookups, one-night stands, and the like. If it turned into something more, it did, and I didn't care if it didn't. Marcus, however, was looking for something semi-serious, one partner rather than multiple, and was trying to date locally but struggled with it. I suggested that he try using a dating app like me, and he downloaded an app where he met his current girlfriend, Sharmi, 25F. Sharmi is in her second year of law school, graduated with the highest of academic honors with a BA for her undergrad, and has fairly well-off parents. I know all of this because my husband gushed about it to me after he had already gone on a few dates and was hitting it off with her. I was happy for him. Their relationship only really annoyed me when their plans coincided with mine, and I had to cancel my own plans last minute to watch our kids. Until Marcus would stay up for hours, talking to Sharmi while in our bed, and would only go to the living room to resume their conversation there if I said he's keeping me up or he had work in the morning. I've seen plenty of receipts for flowers, chocolates, new purses, jewelry, and fancy dinners all for Sharmi, when we've hardly done anything truly special in the past year. Part of our agreement was that we wouldn't totally give up on our marriage and have things like date nights. If I try to bring that up, Marcus will argue that he's been busy with work, that I don't actually bother to do anything special for us, or walk away from the conversation. Yesterday was my last straw. January 31st is our wedding anniversary, and I assumed that he would at least stay home with me and the kids like he did last year, but nope. When I went to talk to him about it, he said that since he missed Charmy's birthday last week due to being super busy at work and too exhausted to go out, he wanted to have a late birthday celebration with her. I yelled at him when he said that, and obviously, our wedding anniversary is more important than Charmy's birthday. Marcus argued with me, saying we didn't do anything last year, so why should it matter if he spends his time somewhere else? I said that at least he spent his time at home rather than with someone else. We argued some more before Marcus just walked away from me and went into the guest bedroom. He didn't come out unless it was to interact with the kids and barely spoke to me if I was around. He went straight to work after making sure that the kids had caught their bus, and hasn't answered or replied to my phone calls or texts about wanting to talk to him. He'll be home soon, and I am seriously at the end of my rope. Our relationship has gone seriously downhill since he started dating her, but then again, she also makes him so happy from what I've seen. It's also not like he's neglecting our kids, which I would never allow. Update 1. This is just a small update that'll probably upset the people bashing me and rooting for my husband. So apparently when Marcus went over to Charmy's place, after they had eaten dinner, dessert, and he gave Charmy her birthday gift, she broke up with him. Charmy said that her parents didn't approve of her dating an older man, and she really needed to focus on her studies. My husband pleaded with her, but she was firm about it. Marcus left her apartment and told me about this in a miserable tone once we were alone in our bedroom. I didn't say anything or try to comfort him, which made him angry, so he slept in the guest bedroom once again. I'm pretty sure Marcus is trying to win Charmy back from the order and save for a later list on our shared Amazon account. I can tell he's moping over the breakup, but he's putting on a good face over the past couple of days. As for me, I'm going to meet with a lawyer about separating from my husband later this week and hopefully serving him the papers for it as soon as possible. I haven't told him about this yet. Sorry if this isn't the update you wanted about my husband divorcing me and going to live happily ever after with Charmy, but it is what it is.
My girlfriend of 3 years confessed she only started dating me because her roommate convinced her, knowing that I had a big crush on her. So I, 28 male, have had a mega crush on my girlfriend, 31 female, ever since school days. We were in the same school, although she was one class ahead of me. Now my crush was such that everyone in my school knew, like if I was anywhere near her people would just give a mischievous smile to the both of us. If we were sitting near each other then my friends would tease me mercilessly, lol. In short, it was impossible for her to not know about it, but I never had the courage to ask her out. After school we moved to different parts of the world for our education and we were not even friends on Facebook. Anyways, around 3.5 years ago I was attending the birthday celebrations of a friend when I saw her again. It was her alright, only she had become even more gorgeous and badass. The friend whose birthday I was attending was a mutual friend from our school, and he of course knew about my crush. There were 2 or 3 more mutual friends there who also knew and they kept encouraging me to go and talk to her. So I finally went up to her with my heart in mouth and had a small talk with her. She of course recognized me from school and we had a nice talk and then we exchanged numbers and socials. So, with great trepidation I did some light detective work to find out if she is single or not. To my great relief I didn't find the presence of any guys in her feed, so my hopes went up a little. I reached out to her to hang out fully expecting her to turn me down but she accepted, to my great surprise. So we hung out and I found out that we have a lot in common and then we decided for a next meetup. Things picked up from there and eventually we became boyfriend and girlfriend. She is everything I expected and more, plus she is also extremely happy with our relationship. We have even been discussing marriage. Anyways, last weekend we hosted her best friend and husband for a dinner at our house. The best friend is someone whom I had known during our school days and she is a good friend too. After dinner we were shooting the breeze, and everyone was pretty drunk except me, as they were staying the night at our place. So we were talking when her drunk best friend suddenly turned to my girlfriend and said, "Look how happy you are today. I feel some sense of pride after looking at you too." I smiled and said, "Well, thank you." Then she continued talking to my girlfriend and said, "You didn't even want to give this guy a chance and only agreed when I pestered you to go on a pity date with him and your plan was to let him down easy after the said date. But instead you guys are sitting here talking about your future together and it makes me so happy that I convinced you to take a chance with him. Can you imagine if you had stuck to your original plan?" Her husband by now realized the awkwardness and led her away to sleep. I could see in my girlfriend's face that she was visibly stressed. So we went to bed too and when she came to bed after changing clothes she was already in tears. She took my hand in hers and said please don't mind her words. I asked her is it true and she admitted yes it was. She knew I always had a massive crush on her so when I asked her out she didn't want to be mean by turning me down harshly. So she discussed it with her best friend who was also her roommate at the time about the situation. The best friend knew me, so she tried to convince her to give me a chance, but my girlfriend was not convinced. Finally, the best friend asked her to go on 2 or 3 dates with me and then let me down easy, and my girlfriend agreed. But then she found out we really clicked together and wanted to continue dating, and well, here we are 3 years later. I hugged her and said it's okay, don't worry about it too much as it's water under the bridge. But as you guys can tell, it's obviously bothering me. And I think she has started to catch on too, as she has been extra attentive and loving to me since the incident. So Reddit, on the one hand I am the guy who is literally going to be engaged and eventually married to my crush, and it's even better because our relationship just how I imagined to be, only 10 times better. On the other hand, it does sting a little to know that she only agreed to go out with me because she pitied me, not gonna lie. Please knock some sense into me before I self-sabotage this wonderful relationship. Thank you. Update, so I guess I should tell what happened after I made the post. In the morning, the best friend apologized for her insensitive comments the night before. She said she got too drunk and that she just wanted to take credit for setting us up and playing a matchmaker, but being drunk she blurted out some unnecessary things. I said, of course, you don't have to apologize, as I have to thank her for me and my girlfriend going on that first date. After the best friend left, I went to my girlfriend and shared my feelings, and asked her why was she hesitant on going out with me. She then took my hands in hers and told me that it just felt awkward to her. She had known for years that I had a crush on her. On top of that, I was younger and junior than her. Her friends from back home sometimes used to tease her by taking my name, and almost all of our mutual friends know about my crush on her. So when I asked her out, she felt awkward, because, 1. I was more into her than she was into me even before going out on a single date, and 2. I had her on a pedestal and she was certain that reality was never going to meet my fantasy, so she wanted to avoid going through this. Also, she thought I was a weirdo, she admitted it, lol. But after her best friend went to bat for me, she decided to go out with me and then let me down easy after 2 or 3 dates. Then I asked, well, what changed after the first date, and she said, well, you didn't give off any weird vibes. Yes, you were very happy and nervous as a result, but I didn't get any creepy vibes from you. You were just a guy with a crush, with whom I had insane chemistry even on the first date. And now, 3 years later, I think I have a bigger crush on you than you ever had on me. After having this conversation, we went out to have dinner at the same restaurant where we had our first date and even tried to order the same dishes, but alas, they had discontinued one of the dishes. Then we decided to order something entirely new, which we both had never had. Anyways, that was the update, guys. Thank you for reminding me how lucky I am, lol. Edit to add, we will be going ring shopping in the first week of December. I never thought my wife's nosiness would lead to such a nightmare. Now 3 lives are gone because of her. I, 57 male, have been married to my beautiful wife Charlotte, 55 female, for 32 years up until her passing. She was and still is to me the most charming, beautiful, charismatic woman to have ever graced this planet. She was the light of my world and the epitome of a graceful woman. Her only flaw, she was a bit nosy. Throughout our marriage, I would joke to her sometimes, you have to mind your own business. It's cheaper that way, not realizing that someday it would ultimately end up being a fatal flaw. There wasn't anything or any information within our neighborhood that my wife didn't know about. Almost every night after I came home from work, she would have something to tell me. Charlotte was a stay-at-home mom since the day she gave birth to our 3 kids. Next door to us, a new home was being constructed and was nearing completion. King, 40 male, and Nina, 32 female, moved in prior to construction being completed, with some of the workers frequenting the property as time winded down. According to my wife, King and Nina were involved in an extramarital affair, cheating on their spouses with each other, and in the end they had divorced their spouses to be together. Our island is pretty small, so it is a common thing to know what is happening with who and what the talk of the town is, but I prefer to mind my business. King worked night shifts and Nina was also a stay-at-home, which resulted in Charlotte interacting with them a lot. King would always say that my wife was the mother he never had. My wife grew to love King as her own, but she was never too fond of Nina. She would always make comments saying something was off about Nina. I looked past it. I interacted with them occasionally, but nothing substantial. A few months went by and construction was completed on the house next door. They really did a beautiful job. Charlotte would comment to me almost every night that one of the contractors would still frequent the house even though construction was completed, but only at night when King had left for work. I told her it wasn't my business or hers to worry about. About a month went by and she brought it up again. This time she asked if she should tell King. I told her no. We got into a huge argument about it. She called our kids, they told her no. My daughter in particularly told her mom, just leave them alone. The next morning before I left for work, I specifically told Charlotte to not do anything stupid. What does Charlotte do? Something incredibly stupid. As humans, we observe things subconsciously, and it isn't until you sit down and piece things together that you notice just how much you observe. I came home from work and as usual King's car was gone, which meant he was to work. Later that night I took the trash out, and noticed King's vehicle was back, but this time it was parked behind George's vehicle. I also heard muffled noises, but it wasn't loud because our homes in the neighborhood have hurricane impact resistant windows, which is basically a sealant. Those windows make it hard to hear anything from the inside and outside. I went back inside and jokingly said to my wife, "Guess he must have found out." She looked at me and said maybe so. The next morning neither Nina or King came out to hail my wife, and George's car was still in the driveway. The night came, and still the same thing. King's car didn't move and George's car was still blocked in. The next morning Charlotte told me she would go next door to check on King and Nina. I said okay and left for work. Once again my wife, being the nosy person she is, knocked on the door and didn't get a reply. She walked around the yard and knocked on their sliding door. She didn't get a reply. My wife called me and asked if she should get a welfare check done. I told her no. Some hours go by and my wife called me again, and asked again if she should get a welfare check done because something doesn't feel right. I asked her why does she care so much. That is when she admitted to me that she had texted King while he was at work 2 nights ago saying, "I thought construction was done at your home, why is the contractor back? He only works at night." It felt like a train had ran over me because I knew right there and then everything I had observed for the last few nights and days were starting to add up. The only thing I could say to my wife was call the police. I sped home. I worked about 15 minutes from my home and I could swear to you I made it back in 3. The police came and taped off our entire street. Nina and George had passed away. King came out of the house shouting. Nina broke my heart. According to the news report and interrogation of King, he said he walked into the house and caught Nina and George making snapped. He then did horrendous things to them. I told my son-in-law that his wife, my daughter, cheated on him. Now everyone hates me. I've been a long-time lurker, never thought I'd need to post anything, but pretty much everyone in my life is telling me I am wrong. I am 55 years old and I've been married for 35 years. I have one child, a daughter who is 32 years old. I will call her Alice, and she has been with John for 10 years, married 4 years. Alice has always wanted children but they held off for a while to focus on their careers, but she recently told us they were going to start trying to get pregnant. I love my daughter and feel I've always been a good father to her, but I admit she and my wife have always had a special bond. This past weekend we went out to dinner with some friends and had a few drinks. When we got home we had a few glasses of wine. I point this out because my wife rarely drinks, so she is a lightweight. She was tipsy and we were talking about potentially becoming grandparents and she made a comment about Alice's marriage that caught my attention. She said they've overcome a lot in the marriage, but then stopped herself and didn't continue. This made me curious because they've only been married 4 years and I wasn't aware of any roadblocks they had run into. Not that they share everything with us. I pressed her on what she meant and finally she confessed that 1 year into the marriage my daughter cheated with a coworker. She tearfully confessed this to my wife a week after it happened because she supposedly felt so guilty. She begged her not to say anything and she kept her word until now. I was blown away because I did not think she would ever do something like that. I don't know all the details. She got flirty with a coworker and eventually they slept together once. Then she stopped it and has apparently been faithful ever since. I did feel some slight guilt because I knew my wife would not have told me if she was sober and I wonder if I should not have pressed her on it, but I can't undo what I learned. I should now point out that when I was a lot younger I was with someone who cheated on me. I have zero tolerance for cheaters due to that, so I might be biased. John is also like a son to me and my wife. She did ask me not to say anything and this confused me. When she had said they had overcome a lot and I found out what happened, I had assumed John eventually found out and they worked through it. But no, all she meant was that Alice grew as a person and became a better wife. I didn't push her any further. I let her go to bed. I had not drank as much. I stayed up all night thinking. I decided then and there that either my daughter would have to confess or I would tell John. Not only do I think he has a right to know, but I would never be able to interact with him again in a normal manner knowing the secret. I do love my daughter and I also worry about the potential fallout because she is trying to get pregnant, and what if John finds out after the child is born? I feel like he had a right to know. I would not keep it a secret if I found out John cheated on her. The next day was Sunday and I knew I needed to talk to my daughter. My wife was against this, but I did end up having her come over the next day. It did not go well. First she blew up at her mother for telling me. Then she yelled at me when I told her either she confesses or I am telling John. She said it was none of my business, etc. I disagreed. John is part of the family. She said I would destroy her life if I did this, she'd hate me, etc. She stormed out. Well, I did end up telling John and the fallout is tremendous. John packed his bags and left the home the next day and is apparently refusing to try counseling and intends to pursue divorce. Everyone hates me, my daughter hates me, my wife is also not on my wife. All our family members say I overstepped. I've spoken to some of my friends, and they said I blew up my relationship with my daughter over this. The only one showing me any kindness is John, who thanked me for telling him. My wife isn't on my side and I suspect this is because she was hoping for grandchildren. We both were. I just feel like I didn't blow up their relationship. Alice is the one who cheated and lied. I love her to death and now I wonder if I made the right choice. Should I have just kept this to myself? I have always been friendly with John and we have dinner with them at least once a month, not including holidays or birthdays. I know I could not interact normally around him, and so what should I have done? Ban them both from my home without explanation? Never go to their home again? And if they have children, my wife will definitely want us over there more often, so I don't think I could hide this. I suck at poker, I can't just fake it. So should I have kept quiet? And I guess also, am I wrong for being upset my wife isn't on my side?
My boyfriend thinks the car I won automatically belongs to him. Now, his family is trying to make me keep it, and I think I might not want to keep the relationship either. I, 23F, won a brand new compact car in a raffle at a trade show I attended for work a few weeks ago, which is amazing. However, I already have an older car that I really like, and I just finished paying it off. Now I can switch to cheaper liability-only insurance. My current car still has plenty of life left in it, with only about 100k miles. Plus, if I were to choose a new car, the one I won wouldn't be my top pick. After doing some research, I found out that after taxes and shipping, I can make about $14-15k from selling the car. That money would be a fantastic start after graduating college, more than tripling my savings. My boyfriend, 25M, has been without a car for a few months. He's been having some financial difficulties, so he hasn't been able to get a new one yet. However, he can walk to the grocery store, get a ride to work, and I drive us anywhere else we need to go. It's been working out fine, and I don't mind at all. He helps out with gas and driving. Just for context, he lives with friends, while I live with my dad rent-free, so I've been able to save up money. I definitely see a future with him, but we haven't discussed moving in together yet, though we are very serious about each other. I went to a gathering at his parents' house last night, and everyone congratulated me on winning the car. However, everyone, including my boyfriend, seemed to think the obvious thing to do was to either give the car to him or give him my current car and keep the new one. I don't plan on doing either of these things. It would be different if we were married or living together and sharing finances, but we're not at that point in our relationship. I don't feel it's my responsibility to give him what essentially amounts to $15,000 in cash. If I had won the money instead, nobody would be suggesting that I just give it all to him. The car and the money from selling it should rightfully be mine. It's not fair for me to feel pressured into providing him with a free car, whether it's my current $5,000 car that I really like or this brand new one. During dinner at his family's house, I stayed quiet because I was so shocked by their assumption and didn't want to cause a scene in front of his entire extended family. How do I gently communicate to him and his family that this car and the money from it are not his in any way? Update 1. The day after the family gathering where everyone assumed I'd just let my boyfriend use the car for free, I had to drive into the city where I won the car to sign some paperwork and pay fees. Since we both had the day off, I asked my boyfriend if he'd like to come along and we could walk around the city and grab some food afterward. He agreed, and I picked him up. We hadn't talked about the night before at all. During the drive, he asked some general questions about what I had to do that day, and I explained everything, including how the taxes on the car were going to be several $1,000s. Luckily, I could cover them with my savings until I sold the car, hopefully for around $14-15k, based on my brother's estimates. There was a moment of quiet in the car, and then he asked, "You don't want to keep it?" I replied no, explaining that I was happy with my older, bigger car, which better suits our needs, and I can pay cheaper insurance on it because it's already paid off. He seemed surprised by the amount of taxes. After a bit of awkward silence, I finally asked, "Did your family think I'd give you the car to use?" He explained that his mom had told everyone right before I arrived that we, meaning him and I, had won the car and that he'd finally have something to drive. He admitted that he didn't think I'd actually do that, but he assumed I'd want to keep the new car simply because it was new and maybe I'd let him use my old car if he took over the insurance payments. Then he quickly added that he didn't realize the taxes would be so high. I guess his thinking made sense given what he assumed about the costs. Eventually, we agreed that selling the new car made the most sense. I asked if he was planning to explain that to his mother, and he assured me that he would. He mentioned that his mother sees us as a married couple already because she wants that so much for him and has been pushing him to propose to me. That was news to me. Neither of us feels ready for that yet. We're content with where we are in our relationship. He promised to talk to his mom and clarify everything to his family, assuring me that he wouldn't let them think any less of me, which was a concern of mine. So, he patiently waited while I dealt with the paperwork for the raffle, which ended up taking over 3 hours, and afterward, we enjoyed a lovely time strolling around the city. I treated us to a very nice dinner. It was a pleasant end to a somewhat awkward situation.
Parents put me up for adoption as a kid because I was a boy. Now they contacted me after 20 years asking for money to fund my sister's education. I am 25M. My story goes back to the time when I was 6, or rather since the time I was born. I'm the third and youngest child of my parents. We were not rich, but my parents made decent money to raise 3 kids. We lived in a small town in an ancestral house, which saved us a lot of expenses. Grandparents owned a farm that sufficed a significant portion of our kitchen needs. Dad is a truck driver and comes home every 3 to 4 days. Mom works as a waitress. My parents already had 2 daughters when they conceived me. I was the unplanned one, and you know the sentiments of the parents when an unplanned child pops up. Obviously, I didn't know about all this as a kid. But as I grew up, I started understanding these terms in bits and pieces, and it wasn't pleasant to know that I'm unwanted. My parents wanted to get rid of me, but the doctor advised against it because it could have led to some major health concerns for my mother. My parents, especially my mother, wanted a girl. Her reason was very simple. She wanted me to use the discarded clothes of my elder siblings so that she didn't have to buy new clothes for me. My two elder sisters had a year of age gap, so they pretty much had the same sized clothes interchangeably. It was fun for them. However, when I was born as a boy, my parents were disappointed. They hated my guts. They dressed me in girls' clothes and even sent me to school with my sister's discarded uniform. It was just so embarrassing for me as a kid. Though I was very small at that time, I still have a blurred memory of how I was being wearing a girl's uniform and long hair. If I even complained about it, all I got was a thrashing from my mom. I grew up hearing nothing but harsh words from my parents, most of which I didn't use to understand then, and when I understood, I hated my parents. Dad was still better than mom, but he used to be away for most of the days and was flaky in nature. On some days, I thought he was neutral between all three of us, and on some days he behaved as evil as mom, if not more. I won't say I was a saint kid. I used to revolt when I started understanding their biases towards me and my sisters. They always got the best of everything and I got their leftovers. So I started being evil to them because as a kid I held them responsible for my misery. Yes, I was grounded for my actions, sometimes quite severely. I had to make my own breakfast and was left without dinner on many occasions. Understand the pleas of a 6-year-old going through this. There was one incident that I remember quite vividly, and I think that was the game changer of my life. That day or that week, I don't remember exactly, I was being severely bullied in the playground for dressing up like a girl. I came home and found that mom had brought some new clothes for my sisters for the holidays, and bam. I took a pair of scissors and cut them into confetti. I know I was wicked and I'm not proud of what I did, but I was 6, subjected to trolling because of my parents. It came from a place of pain and not evilness. Instead of understanding my pain, my parents considered that to be a sin that deserved the strictest punishment of all. They put me up for adoption. They waited for a month, but there were no takers, and that anger was also unleashed on me. I was constantly told how useless I am, that no one wants to have me. There were times I heard my mom saying I wished I had gender checked, I would have never got him into the world. It haunts me to know that my parents hate me so much, and for a reason that is not in my control. After some time, when there was no response for my adoption, they started talking about this to their friends and relatives. Dad had known someone next town who ran a food van with his wife. They were relatively poorer than us but wanted a child. They were in their late 30s and had been trying for a child for more than a decade, but there was no luck. Dad spoke to them and they readily agreed to adopt me. I remember that moment when Dad broke this news to mom and my sisters. They were delighted and joyous to get rid of me. Dad also gave a disclaimer that they were poor and that I might never be able to attend school. Mom rolled her eyes and said, "Who cares? Just drop him there tomorrow." I stood there numb at the corner, holding the curtain. No matter how much I hated my family, I was scared and hurt having to leave them. I had tears in my eyes, but I didn't cry out loud. They were so happy enjoying the moment that they forgot I was there. When Dad saw me in tears, he came forward, rubbed my back, and said, "Pack your stuff, we'll leave tomorrow morning to your new family." I cried out loudly when he said this, but I realized that it was going on deaf ears. So, I went to my room, packed my stuff, praying that my new family was less wicked. The next day, Dad drove me to the next town. I don't exactly remember the emotions I was going through, but I wasn't crying. Maybe I was just numb when I was leaving the house and throughout the drive. My new family was indeed poor. They had a tiny house with one room. They had renovated the storehouse into my room. I had no complaints because they at least made an effort to provide me with a room. I never had my own room or a bed. My sisters had a bed and I was put up on a cot at the corner of their room and a tiny closet for my belongings. This room was comparatively smaller than our room, but it was cozy. My new parents, Mary and John, were warm and loving, but I came from a disturbed household. I had never experienced that love. Yes, I saw my parents showering their love on my sisters, but never on me. I used to doubt my new parents' intentions and took their love to be just a temporary one. I tried not to get attached to them because I feared that they might also throw me away. Childhood trauma, you know. It took me many months to realize that they actually loved me and were not putting up a facade. Yes, my school was discontinued that year because my parents moved me here mid-session, but my new parents promised to get me to school next year. I witnessed how they worked extra hard to save money to get me into a school. That's when I started loving them back. My adoption turned out to be a blessing in disguise. My biological parents never showed up after shipping me to Mary and John. Honestly, I was relieved because here I was treated by my original identity as a boy. Mary and John were very hardworking people. They worked for 14 to 16 hours a day for their food truck. The truck was located just outside of their apartment, so I was not left alone when they were working. I could see them right through my bedroom window. Eventually, I started spending my day on the truck helping them with whatever I could. When I got admitted to the school, I gave my full time to studies but helped them with the chores whenever I was free. I was a little over 10 when I helped John at the cash counter. I was pretty good at calculation. I learned business and accounting from a very early age. After high school, I wanted to run their business full time, but they both insisted that I complete my college education first. They funded it with their savings. They were getting too old and weak to run a food truck. I wanted to take their responsibility the way they took mine, but they assured they can manage for a few more years and I should pursue college. I studied business and accounting in college because I ultimately wanted to be an entrepreneur. My graduation day was the happiest day of my life. John and Mary were over the moon. They even asked my biological parents to attend the convocation, but they didn't turn up. After college, I wanted to run the food van and let Mary and John retire, but they had planned something else for me. They had accumulated handsome savings and he handed that over to me. I was overwhelmed with his gesture. He said they can survive on their own for a few more years, but they didn't want to drag me into this. He gave me the money to start a business of my own. I didn't want to blindly waste his money, so I used my business knowledge. I hunted for a small local eatery at a good location that was struggling for sales. I pitched it to the owner to lease out to me on a profit-sharing model. After several rejections, I got one. I started it from scratch, renovated the place and menu according to the millennials and Gen Z's tastes, and gave the best services to the customers. The sales rocketed within a year and I made 2x profit on the investment. 4 years into this and now I have 3 cafes in the town running successfully. I upgraded Mary and John to a better apartment. I got a tiny place for myself. I had been living with them until now. I asked them to get rid of their food truck and enjoy their retirement, but they insisted on continuing it for their happiness. When I left the house with my suitcase, I never imagined myself to be a college graduate, but here I am running restaurant chains in the town. Fast forward to last month, it was a usual day at work. I was busy at the cash counter of one of the restaurants when I saw a familiar face. I felt as if I saw a ghost. It was my biological father. I was seeing him after almost 2 decades. He looked pale and weak. He walked with a wide smile across the counter and hugged me. There were customers in the store, so I didn't say anything and took him to the corner. His face brought back all the harrowing memories of my childhood. I wouldn't have been able to write such details about my past if they didn't reappear in my life. He said he was so happy and proud to see me successful in life. I didn't know what to say. I stood there numb. He said he was passing by and met John, who told him about my successful venture. He said he would get my mom on the weekend. I didn't say anything and he left shortly after that. After wrapping up my day, I went to John and told him that I didn't want to meet my biological parents who disowned me for being a boy. They knew about my distressed childhood. I wanted to run away and hide somewhere on the weekend, but Mary insisted that I forgive my parents and move on. I agreed to meet them on the condition that Mary and John should be present with me. So, my biological parents arrived at John's house. I thought they would apologize for what they did to me, but I tell you they had zero remorse. Instead, they counted the favors on me. Mom said I should be thankful to them that they found such good parents for me who raised me to be a successful individual. I was shocked to hear that. I wanted to give it back to them, but Mary held my hand, gesturing to me to calm down. I diplomatically said I'm blessed to have John and Mary as my parents. I can describe the meeting as awkward for me. The next day I got a call from my mother. I didn't recognize her voice. How would I? It was the first time she had called me in 20 years. It was a demand for money. She said that Dad had lost his regular job and had been working on a contractual basis for years now. She had also lost her job because apparently, no restaurant needs a 50-year-old waitress. It was difficult for them to make ends meet. I asked how much she needed and she said $20 grand would suffice. She had borrowed that money from her friends over the last few months to run the groceries at the house, and now her friends were asking for the money back and she had none. I hung up the call saying, "I think about it and get back." Now the thing is, no matter how much I hate them, I feel bad that people are chasing them for money. Sometimes, I feel she's just exploiting me, but what if they genuinely need help? I'll feel bad for letting them go through the embarrassment even though I had the money. Update 1, thanks for all the comments and kudos. I got quite mixed reactions from the people regarding helping out my mom with $20,000. I then discussed it with Mary and John. Mary was happy that I was considering helping my parents, but she also cautioned me to be vigilant. John said it was my money, so I should take the decision. He also had the same fear as me, that what if they were trying to misuse my emotions? After thinking a lot about it, I agreed to take this first and last bet on my biological parents, and made the transfer to her account. I did feel good that I was able to help out my family even though they were mean to me, but I was wrong. Perhaps, I should say I was right, because I dreaded they were going to exploit me financially, and they are indeed trying to. A week after sending the money, Mom called me again. I responded with mixed feelings. She thanked me for the help and then she said, "Your sisters want to meet you, so when do you think you can make it?" At that moment, I really felt that my family wanted me back. I know my parents wronged me when I was a kid and I hated them, but I never hated my sister. Maybe as a small kid, I would have done some evil things to them, but after I grew up, I never held them responsible. It wasn't their fault. Sometimes, I even thought that my parents got rid of me because they were poor and not because they were evil. I told Mom that we could meet on the coming Sunday and that I could drive home. She interjected saying, "Why don't we meet somewhere outside?" I didn't think.
My fiancé just humiliated me in front of all our friends and family when it was supposed to be our special day. Now I'm supposed to pick up the pieces after he shattered my heart. Yesterday was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, and it turned out to be the worst. I was getting married to the love of my life, but my fiancé never showed up to the ceremony, leaving me alone at the altar. His friends and family tried to get a hold of him, but all calls went straight to voicemail. After waiting an hour for him, I told my guests that there wasn't going to be a wedding. I opened the reception hall and told them to enjoy the food and open bar. Even if there was no ceremony, I still wanted them to have a good time and enjoy the food and drinks. I tried to call him a couple of times, but after 3 more failed calls, I just stopped and told everyone else who was trying to get a hold of him to stop. He made it clear he didn't want anyone to get a hold of him, and I wasn't going to have them waste their time. I didn't cry. I wasn't going to let myself cry, at least not in front of everyone. His mother came to me and apologized through tears. She told me how disappointed she was in him and that she was so sorry. I just shook my head and stuck with her the entire time. I didn't want her to cry and feel bad for something that wasn't her fault. The real MVPs were all my friends. They did their absolute best to keep things from being awkward and entertained everyone. They played music, danced, and one of them went as far as going back home to bring a projector and a game system for all the kids to play. I was glad that the day was somewhat saved, but I still felt horrible. My would-be brother-in-law, Ethan, kept me from getting too intoxicated when I really wanted to. He told me that it would be awkward if I did, so I did my best to keep everyone happy. After 11, I told everyone who bought gifts to take them back and get their money back. A few of them refused and had me keep the gifts they got. So now I'm back at the hotel we booked, and I'm alone. This morning, I got a couple of missed calls from my fiancé and several messages that I haven't opened yet. I'm so angry at him. He humiliated me yesterday by not showing up when he could have told me he was getting cold feet. I had my friend message him that I want to be left alone and that if he showed up to the hotel room, I was going to call my brothers to have him removed. So far, he hasn't shown up, but I am getting phone calls from his friends, probably all wanting me to speak to him. I don't know if it's me being shallow or not, but now I'm rethinking our entire relationship and whether or not I see a future with him. So, another issue is that I have an extra plane ticket. It was supposed to be for our honeymoon, but since the fiancé isn't here, I decided to enjoy my little getaway vacation for myself. A couple of friends are coming with me, but not for another week since they need to arrange childcare and take vacation time, so they can't come at the last second. To be honest, I want to invite Ethan because I've never traveled anywhere in my life. I know he's been to where I'm going, and I want him to come so he can show us the best places to visit. Ethan told me he'd go for me, but should I invite him? I asked Ethan's mom, and she was all for it, but I still don't know if it'll cause drama. Update 1. Okay, so I feel like I should explain more about Ethan. First, I'm not going to take him. Second, I've known Ethan a little longer than my ex-fiancé. Please believe me when I say he's a close friend of mine. Both of us bonded by teasing his brother, and with that, we just kind of clicked and became fast friends. I wanted to take him because I didn't know how to use my ticket at the airport. I've never traveled, and I didn't want to look dumb by trying to figure it out. Thankfully, someone explained what to do, and I'm forever grateful. I know it sounded iffy trying to take Ethan, but honestly, it was for something innocent. I see him more as a brother than anything. And finally, I read my ex-fiancé's messages. Yes, he's alive. He wasn't in any terrible accident, and the reason he never showed up was because he found out he has a kid. His childhood sweetheart came by with a kid maybe a couple of weeks ago. His best man knew and never told me because my ex didn't want him to tell me until he was 100% sure, and I guess he found out today. He apologized so many times for not showing up, but he couldn't because he felt so guilty of what? I don't know. He said a large part of him wants to make things right and take care of his son because he's always wanted a family. So screw the last 3 years, right? I don't know if that means he's going to go back to his ex because he wants to talk over the phone, but honestly, I'm done. I think it's an excuse to get back with his ex. I don't believe he's ever gotten over her, and she over him, which is why she chose now to show herself. He sent a picture of the kid to me, and I went over my ex-fiancé's mom's Facebook to see any pictures she posted of my ex-fiancé when he was a kid. They're low quality, but there is definitely a resemblance. It feels so surreal to me, like this one big joke. I feel like I'm missing more info, like there's something else going on, but I'll find out later. I haven't responded, so instead, I'm just going to open a bottle of wine and get plastered. My best friend is currently on her way with takeout and ice cream, so I thought I'd share this. Maybe after my much-needed vacation, I'll do another update, but right now, I'm just gonna do me. Until then, screw you, Ben. My stepkids want to rub it in my face that I'm not their real mother after I spent years raising them? Fine, I'll show them what life is like without a mommy. My husband, 40M, and I, 36F, have been together for 8 years now, and our marriage has been rocky. When I met him, he already had 2 kids, a twin boy, 16M, and girl, 16F. I love them like they're my own children, and since it's hard for me to have kids, I consider them mine. My husband and I tried for a baby last year, and I became pregnant but lost it due to complications, so I think I'm just not meant to be a new mother. The husband's kids haven't seen their mom in years because she left them for a guy in New York, which is so sad because they didn't get to have a relationship with her. The twins call me mom and everything, and we do everything like a little family like I always wanted, so I really thought things were perfect. When I was younger, I always used to tell myself not to date a single father because they might be messing with the mother of their kids, but I took the leap of faith. The other day, my son and daughter wanted to go to the mall with their friends, which was fine because they go to the mall a lot with them. The argument started because of what she was wearing. She wore a very short skirt with a crop top and a jeans jacket. I immediately told her no and to change her clothes because I didn't feel comfortable with her going outside like that. I don't even know where she got the skirt from because anything she gets from the mall, she shows me in the hall. Her brother didn't even care what she was wearing and just rolled his eyes at me. She was pissed and upset, though, and at the top of the steps, she screamed and told me I wasn't her mom, so I should stop acting like it. Her brother laughed, which made me feel even worse. So, I asked him why it was funny to him, and he said that it's true, I'm not their mom, so I need to stop acting like I can tell them what to do. This felt like a slap in the face because I'd basically raised her, and this is what I get? In the past months, they've been saying horrible things to me. My daughter even told me it was my fault I lost her half-sibling, and she's happy I did. But the next day, I toughened up. I acted like nothing happened the day before. I would usually wake them up for school and make them breakfast, but this time I didn't. I made myself breakfast because, like they said, I'm not their mom. My son had a basketball game that day, and I would usually be the mom to bring snacks for the team, but I wasn't going. My daughter had a cheer competition 2 days later, but I wasn't going either. I know you might call me petty for this, and I wouldn't disagree with you. I've been getting up and ignoring everyone. I could feel them staring at me every time. Last night, my daughter came up to me and asked me why I didn't show up to her competition, and I told her I wasn't her mom, so why would I? I can already see the "you're the jerk" comments, "they're just kids," etc. I told my husband what they said, but he just brushed me off. I don't think our marriage is working out, and I've been thinking about a divorce. I feel so unappreciated in the place I call home. When I slave in the kitchen to make them food, they order out instead, so I am the only one eating the food. Did I take it too far? Update 1. I'm sorry I didn't provide an update sooner. I had to think about what my next move should be. I tried to sit the kids down and talk to them along with my husband. My stepdaughter was basically on her phone the entire time, not even paying attention to what I said. Surprisingly, her brother was listening, and he apologized for laughing at the comment he and his sister made. I asked her if she could apologize for what she said about my baby, but she brushed me off and again said the baby deserved it. My husband didn't do a thing when she said this. He sat down, looking into space, and I felt embarrassed, so I knew what I had to do. I told him I wanted a divorce if he was going to act like I'm a stranger and disrespect me. At this moment, this was my first time getting his attention. He told me that wasn't the right decision and that we could go to therapy, but when I mentioned that to him before, he didn't care. I know this is not the decision you guys thought I would have chosen, but I'm trying to figure out what I want for my life. He begged me not to take this route, and I wanted to fold, but I know it will happen again. This is really hard, you won't even believe who cried. My stepkids had tears coming out of their eyes. I don't know if they were faking it or being serious. It broke my heart, but I can't keep living in a place where I am not wanted. I'm staying with my mom for the meantime so I can get a break and clear my head because all of this is too much. If I have anything else to say, I will update you guys over here. It was a shock to me when my stepdaughter changed her demeanor and started saying sorry out of nowhere. I don't know if it's sincere or if she's just ready for me to leave. Edit. I will be deleting this app. Farewell for now, it's time to start a new life. I want to say thank you to everyone who gave me advice during the days we shared.
My spoiled sister asked to borrow my new Mercedes for her road trip with her friends. I refused, but my parents gave her the keys behind my back. She came back from her road trip without my car, so I pulled the ultimate revenge on her. Part 3. My sister was supposed to return in about a week, giving me little time to act. My parents might soon notice the missing apartment key. I left their house without saying goodbye while they were upstairs. On my way home, my dad called. Fearing he had discovered the missing keys, I was relieved to find that wasn't the case. Instead, he apologized and promised to help me pay for a new car in a few years. I hung up on him, attempting to reach my sister. I was surprised when she actually answered, likely due to my parents' pressure. I confronted her about her audacity. She deflected, accusing me of making our mother cry. Shocked by her audacity, I pressed on, only for her to dismissively suggest I could easily afford another car with my years of savings. She accused me of being ungrateful and insensitive, prioritizing material possessions over our mother. Deep down, her words only fueled my resolve for what I planned next. I hung up, unfollowed her on Instagram, and told my boss I'd be taking my paid leave for the next 3 days. Knowing my city well, despite having visited my sister's apartment only once in 2 years, I remembered its location. My time away from school had acquainted me with the city's rougher parts, where homelessness and were rampant. Encountering a particularly disheveled group living in tents, I concocted a story about offering them housing through a nonprofit. Believing they were about to receive long-term accommodation, 8 individuals eagerly followed me. We took a 30-minute bus ride to my sister's upscale neighborhood, which I paid for. Arriving at her apartment building, we waited for someone to let us in. Once inside, we ascended to the 3rd floor and I unlocked her apartment. It was immaculate, with pristine white walls and furnishings, including a drum set and a piano, spread across its modest 34 square meters. Despite feeling a pang of guilt, remembering her contemptuous words solidified my decision. I welcomed the 8 homeless individuals into the apartment, handing them the keys and informing them it was theirs now. Imagining my sister's reaction upon discovering her new roommates and the inevitable odor greeting her at the door filled me with a perverse sense of satisfaction. I mused on the French legal system's complexity in evicting tenants, confident I'd be driving a new Mercedes long before she could reclaim her apartment.
My family found out I am rich, so they demand that I pay for a $35,000 vacation after I've already paid off all of their mortgages on their houses. To start, I'm 46F, are married and have 3 kids. 10 years ago we came into money, a lot of money. I worked hard in my specific field which earns a lot. I had done some smart investments and they have paid out. I have been steadily adding to my bank account for these years. My husband considers this my money. We don't have a prenup. Hence, I will talk as it is mine. When the first payload came in, I did what my husband and I always discussed: if we would have the money. Mortgage was paid off. I bought a new car and I managed to buy a nice house in our favorite holiday destination. We rent this one out to a very nice family for most of the year. We set up college funds for our children, each an equal amount, which should be enough to pay for 5 years. If there is money left from the fund, the children can use this as a down payment on their own house or apartment. When the money kept coming in, thanks to the investments in my work, I looked towards what could be done for my immediate family. My husband has 2 sisters and we have 5 nieces and nephews on his side from one of the sisters. My brother has 2 children as well. It was decided that all of the nieces and nephews would have college funds as well, for the same amount as my children under the same strict stipulations. I would get the information about the costs and make sure everything is paid. My eldest niece had already started college, so I paid the amount already paid to her parents to keep everything fair. She managed to finish within the 4 years and has some money left. I had an accountant, dear friend, find out what would be beneficial to my brother and one of my SEALs in regards to their mortgage. I paid off the majority for the both of them. My parents were sent on a nice trip, since their house is already paid off, and for both my in-laws and other sister-in-law rent, so I paid a certain amount so they can save that money. Part of the money goes to charity at home and abroad. I also set up some college funds for the children of our closest friends and family members. As a treat, hubby, Lo and I went on a paid-by-us/me vacation with both my own extended family and his. Now, at this point everyone is very grateful. However, one of the SILs always has a need to be in the spotlight, or that one or all of her children need to be. She's nice to my face, but I know for a fact that she has been bad-mouthing me, making passive-aggressive remarks about me and my work and my person, but always in such a manner that you would be the asshole if you would say something. My usual tactic, and one that works always, is play the innocent/dumb one and nitpick on what she says. I have managed to shut her up many times without being classified as a. So the past few years sister-in-law has been hinting that I should pay for a very nice, all-inclusive resort holiday for her and her family abroad, since I have the money. Note, they have money saved that would initially been used for the college funds of their kids, money that has barely been used. And she has been silent. She and her husband took and still take it very seriously. Now that restrictions are mostly lifted, she had a birthday party for her and her son, since her son really wanted to have a party. No biggie, We show up with a gift for her and her son and all is well. Birthday boy got a voucher to buy a tent or the camping gear he wanted. Sil got a voucher to use whatever way she wanted. I added some sunscreen, drinks and such as I knew she wanted to go on a holiday of some sorts. Or so we thought. She asks what our holiday plans are. We say that we won't be crossing any foreign borders. Stay in home country, but we booked a cabin somewhere for a week. Very nice, not luxurious or anything. We would still need to cook and do the grocery shopping. Sil starts on the "oh how nice." We are still thinking about what we want to do. My lovely hubby and I both have an inkling what she's hinting at, but we start spouting ideas in the hopes of avoiding tragedy. We have family at one place. Maybe they could stay there for a weekend or so. There is a campsite somewhere else, with entertainment for children of various ages. Then it comes. She shows us something she found on the World Wide Web, and to be honest, it looks amazing, not too luxurious but still very nice. All inclusive, water park for the kids, spa center, the whole shebang. Price tag for a family of 7? $35,000. So hubby says that's a lot but is glad they saved so much to do this. Sil then goes, "Oh we don't. We thought you would be paying, as my birthday gift." Say, what? People, she just told us what she was looking at. No, scratch that. She expected me to give about $35,000 as a gift for her birthday, just because I have money. She goes on that I earn enough in their family, our godson, other nieces and nephews have been promised already and so forth. We all sat in stunned silence. Birthday boy and 2 of his sisters even looked up to see what we would say while playing with our loaves. Hubby just started laughing, thinking it was a joke.